Hello, my name's Sylvester McCoy. I played Doctor Who. Number 7. Yes, a long time ago. Anyway, you're listening to Neil. No, you're not. Listen to me. Anyway, you might be soon listening to Neil podding. Whatever that is.
Neil Before Blog presents Neil Before Pod.
Hello and welcome to another epic edition of Neil Before Pod, the podcast that mostly survived the snap. I'm your host Craig and I'm assembling a team to talk about the highly anticipated follow-up to the cliffhanger in last year's Avengers Infinity War. It is of course none other than Avengers Endgame. This is a long podcast, even by our standards, but I'm sure you'll agree there's lots to get through, so strap in and prepare for our usual brand of detailed discussion. So I've rounded up some survivors from the cataclysm that's rocked the universe. So, Andrew, congratulations, you survived.
Thank you. Now I just need to wash all the blood and dust from me. Pretty sure I got some deuterium in between my teeth.
There's so much hoovering to do. It's unreal. Angus, well done, you lived.
Mr. Mackenzie, I feel so good.
Natalie, you also survived.
Huzzah!
And Kat, you're also alive, well done.
Somehow that has happened.
And Isaac, you're also alive.
But can you keep me back in?
Well, okay. So, we survived the snap, so that's all good. Or is it good? Who knows? Maybe we'd be better off dead. I guess that's what we're here to discuss. Right, first of all, we should share our thoughts without spoiling. Spoilers are a very important topic where Avengers Endgame is concerned, so Andrew, kick us off. What did you think of Avengers Endgame?
It was absolutely spectacular. Yeah, I felt like pretty much like every single minute of the film was utterly riveting. And I thought it was the whole thing was meticulously put together, and I honestly couldn't have asked for a better ending for the saga.
Angus, what did you think?
I think it was a crazy, incredible achievement to be able to sum up that many movies, that many years worth of story. And like I said in the initial reactions, I just felt like it was like a greatest hits show. We got to see so much of the MCU, all the films leading up to Endgame. And yeah, it was the perfect ending.
Cool. Natalie?
Wakanda forever.
Okay. Is that your spoiler free?
I don't really know what I was going to say. No, I enjoyed it. I want to go and see it again though, because I think with the only time that I've seen it being the midnight showing, I was so tired by the end of it. Tired just thinking about it. That when it got to like towards the end, I was a bit kind of like, when will this end? And I feel like if I went to see it now, probably might not feel like that. So I want to see it again. Quite enjoyed it. Had some amazing moments where I was like, yes! So can't wait to discuss that later on.
Kat, what did you think?
I was disappointed. I didn't like it. I felt it was too long, and a lot of moments were dragged out for absolutely no reason. We were robbed of a lot of emotional payoff, I feel, and I'll get to that later. Yes, it was spectacular, but also a lot of it didn't make sense especially in the context of previous films. It somehow felt like they were disregarding a lot of canon for the sake of either humor or, just like a momentary, like, cool moment. But then if you start digging deeper, it just doesn't gel very well. And I suppose I had different expectations, and they weren't met. And now I'm just left swimming in a sea of lukewarm tears. So there's that.
Sounds very sad.
Wow.
Yeah,
Well,
it is.
we'll dig into
Lukewarm.
that. Lukewarm.
Yeah, just like not warm, but also not cold.
Yeah, that's the worst.
That is the very
Yeah.
definition of lukewarm.
Yes, exactly.
Okay, Isaac, what were your thoughts?
Endgame it shouldn't have really worked as a film when you think about it, but it did. It's like, I know, the more I think about it, there are kind of a lot of, not so much problems, but there's a lot of sort of shortcuts, and there's a lot of sort of characters that didn't really get, I suppose we'll go into it, but when your film's got like a billion characters in it, not every one of them's going to get a full go. But like overall, it was probably the best of the Avengers, collective movies. It was a fun film.
Cool. Well, I don't know what all you guys are talking about, but I was really disappointed. We waited 7 years for Voyager to get home, and that's all we got.
Is that a Star Trek joke?
It is a Star
I
Trek.
think so.
I was getting really confused there because I was like,
the last episode of Voyager was also called Endgame.
only because like you legit just called this great.
No, I loved it. I've seen it 3 times, and yes, there's nitpicks, although they don't necessarily bother me that much. That opinion may change after we've spent the next however long discussing those nitpicks, but yeah, I loved it. It was a satisfying payoff as far as I was concerned, and yeah, I couldn't imagine them pulling it off any better than this. I mean, obviously it's not an ending because there's a Spider-Man film that's a couple of months away with a new trailer. It's out today, actually, as we record. So it's an ending, but not an ending. And yeah, I thought it was great. I think that's all we can say without spoiling, isn't it? Everything's a spoiler where this film's concerned. Absolutely everything. So, with that, shall we launch into the spoiler section?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes, let's.
Let's do it.
Avengers assemble!
Okay, first up, I wanted to play back a little exercise that we did, well, those of us that were at the Edinburgh Midnight screening, before the film started, where we just did our top 3 predictions.
Hello. So my top 3 predictions are Hawkeye's definitely going to die. Because he's in the trailer so much, so that's a sure sign that he's dead. I'll probably try and keep this bread going. I've got some bread. It's unrelated, so I'm going to count that as a bonus prediction. There's probably some element from Infinity War that wasn't true, or we weren't shown the proper version of, so it's going to be like a twist to, like, maybe reality isn't as we've seen it, so there's going to be some sort of long game being planned out. And everybody will have a great time. It's not about winning or losing, but it's about the Avenger friends you make along the way.
Okay, my top 3 predictions. Captain Marvel appears, pisses everyone off, and then they have really great banter, and they'll still find things funny even though everyone pretty much is dead. Number 2, everyone will come back from the dead, but not Loki, although they could bring him back. And number 3, that they start a new universe and a new timeline, and all of this has been for nothing. Top 3 predictions!
My top 3 predictions are Cap will die and his sacrifice will save the universe. I think Thor will survive, but he will be forever changed by whatever it is he has to do. And not everyone will come back. There will be some casualties.
Mods on Reddit were banning memes about Ant-Man and Thanos is you-know-what, so that's my top prediction. Prediction 2, Wolverine. Prediction 3, Emperor Palpatine. There you go.
We will see Spider-Man by the end of this, and he won't be completely dusted. Safe choice. There we go. I've got agreement there. We will hear the Avengers theme at some point played very dramatically. Number 3. There will be very long credits, like the longest of credits. Like, I think the third hour of this film is essentially credits. Those are my predictions. I'm very tired.
Okay, so that was that.
Natalie got basically every one of them.
Chris got all of his safe ones correct as well.
Chris is really like the best. It's so true, the credits are fucking giant. So, what do we make of those?
Well, I got one right.
All of them wrong?
No, I got one right. I said that Thor would survive, but would be changed.
Yeah. He's not like a key to it all, I guess. You know? Captain America doesn't die.
He's severely underused.
Yeah, Chris got all his right because they were the safest ones. Angus, your Emperor Palpatine prediction did not come true.
Frankly, I'm disappointed.
Isaac, did you keep your bread going?
I did, yes. I
Go.
forgot about the bread, and I was like, yes, got one prediction correct.
I know. That was so good.
Your assurance that Hawkeye would die? Nah, not so
I
much.
was so sure he was going to die.
Everyone always assumes Hawkeye will die, and he never does.
I believed Isaac as well, because I was like, whoa, if Isaac thinks he's going to die, then that probably is true. Don't know why. Just thought that you guys like knew.
If the person who's least invested in Marvel on the podcast thinks this one guy's going to die, he's probably spot on.
Honestly, I was like, whoa, well, if Isaac's heard this, then that definitely has to be the case.
Turns out Isaac was one of the directors, but they cut his scene. Yeah, so I just thought it'd be a fun exercise. I didn't know what kind of discussion we'd get out of it, but there it was.
So do I win?
You win, I guess, yeah.
Yeah, I suppose you do.
Nice.
Or you're like joint first with Chris, who did play a safety, to be fair.
Yeah, but to be fair, I think that my predictions...
Yeah, I think you get points for risk.
Yeah, thanks, like +5.
Yeah, let's call you the winner then, that's fine. So
Thank you. I'll take it.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Well done.
Thank you.
It's a momentous day, so it is.
Feel validated now.
You should. Okay, so shall we move on to our Q&A section, which is probably going to take up pretty much the rest of the podcast. We actually have so many questions, it's really amazing. I'm grateful to everyone that posed a question.
I'm not.
How silly. Okay, so I'm just going to pick one at random. So, first one is Holly. She said, considering the amount of memes on Facebook at the moment regarding Endgame, were you slightly disappointed that Ant-Man did not, in fact, go up Thanos' butt?
Thank you for the question. Related to my prediction.
I haven't seen any of these memes.
Oh man, you missed a good time on the internet.
Can someone send me some?
Do you even meme?
No, obviously not.
I'll send you a video, Natalie. It was the best.
Oh,
Yes.
a video.
Yeah. Reviewing the best Thanos memes. It's great.
Nice. Can't wait.
It'll be in the show
That
notes
sounds
as well, now that you've said
it.
Can't wait.
I wasn't disappointed. I kind of thought it wasn't going to happen, so I wasn't disappointed.
Why didn't they do it?
Because it's ridiculous.
But if you could, wouldn't you?
I was slightly disappointed by that iteration of it, but then I was even more disappointed by the suggestion that Ant-Man should go giant and put Thanos up his ass.
If Ant-Man was in Thanos' ass and then made himself large, though, would it explode Thanos? Or would
That I think that was the idea of the meme. Yeah.
or would he get large?
Just his ass.
Like, what if they both got large?
That could be a real miscalculation on Ant-Man's part.
It's like, now we have a giant Thanos, now what do we do?
The way I always thought about it was even if he did try that, and I don't think as a theory it would actually work. Just because Thanos is like his physiology is like would be far more durable than Scott. So if he tried to like expand inside Thanos, he would just end up crushing himself.
That's a depressing thought. Wow.
What if Ant-Man had his penis in Thanos' ass, and then Ant-Man made him
That is definitely too R-rated for Disney.
I think
that still fails under Andrew's rules.
Wait, are we talking about... Are we still... Wait a minute. Oh, I thought we were just like spitballing.
Yeah, I don't think we're doing gay sex jokes.
No, it's not a joke, it was like a legit question.
Okay.
Why did we have to start with that one?
Sorry, it was random.
Because comedy.
It was the first one I looked at. I do apologise. But now
Great question.
Have we put this debate to rest now? I don't know. I don't think we've answered the question. I wasn't disappointed because I didn't think it was going to happen.
Yes, same.
Next question. Andrew, you had one or two, didn't you? So why not? Go ahead.
Yes, I had a couple of questions from my lovely wife Jana. Actually had about a dozen from her actually.
Oh God!
Because when I mentioned this to her this morning, but most of them were covered by all the questions that other people were asking. One of the ones that wasn't mentioned was a simple one of who is Ivan? When Black Widow and Hawkeye were on the Soulstone planet, I can't remember this name.
Vormir.
Yeah, thank you. The Red Skull greeted her as the daughter of Ivan. Though she actually doesn't know who he is, and there wasn't any mention of him. And so just a general question is like, who actually is he?
Well, I actually researched this. It was actually after the film, because I didn't really know much about Black Widow's past in that sense. The Ivan as her father seems to be an MCU invention. There's no real mention of her father in the comics that I can find. However, she did have a middle-aged chauffeur called Ivan at one point, so maybe it's a reference to that?
Who's Ivan? Is Ivan the guy who lived with Thor in the cabin?
No.
No, that was Korg.
Ah.
Like from
And
Ragnarok.
he couldn't possibly be Black Widow's father, so...
Well, it would throw up a few questions.
I think it's more than a few.
Yeah. So, yeah, I'm guessing it was just a random Russian name they plucked out of the ether for her father.
Yeah, well, some other history was Ivan Petrov or something that sounds equally Russian. He was someone who raised her when she was a small child after her mother was killed, and then when she was a small girl, he took her to the Black Ops training place where she spent the end of her childhood being turned into a killing machine.
Yeah, that's the chauffeur guy I was talking about. He's like her Alfred.
They should have just had Red Skull say, "Welcome, Clint, son of Edith, and Natasha, daughter of Vladimir Putin," and then look right to camera and just be like, "You heard me."
That could have worked.
I feel like we should have a separate podcast for questions.
That's what
I
this
just
is.
really wait.
Well, I feel like a lot of the questions
Only
will
the
guide
questions one?
We'll guide our
the
conversation.
conversation.
Yeah.
They will.
Okay, so
Okay.
so does that satisfactorily answer who Ivan is?
Oh, can't hear everything.
I think it's satisfactorily as we're going to get. Yeah.
Yes.
I mean, as much as a throwaway moment could give any satisfaction.
Cool. And your wife had another one? We might as well do that now.
Yeah, yes. Well, this one's actually to hopefully give some a bit more discussion. was asking, but has Banner destroyed the Hulk? Yes, just with her reasoning being that since Banner that now exists in the form of the Hulk and with the Hulk's strength, and when he was talking to the Ancient One to try to convince her to give him the Time Stone, and she thrust his spirit out of his body. Like the spirit that came out was a human Banner, and the Hulk spirit wasn't anywhere to be seen. And seeing as Banner and the Hulk are essentially like two entities that exist in the same body. But since there now doesn't seem to be any trace of the Hulk, then does he still exist?
That's a really good question. Does anyone have any thoughts? I do have thoughts on this one. I just want to see if anybody else
about whether Hulk still exists as the Hulk.
Yeah.
I think he's like evolving. He's like, doesn't he say like he has like a struggle with him, and I think he's by the end, is he not like evolved into some sort of like middle ground between Banner and
Prof Hulk?
Well, he's evolved into like a middle ground physically, yeah, but in terms of personality, he was entirely Banner. Like, there wasn't any trace of the Hulk there.
I guess it all depends whether you consider the Hulk and Banner to be two different people or the same person. I mean, it could be that the Hulk is just an altered state of Banner's own personality, in which
yeah, I don't think he's like a different person.
Like
it's just like another level.
Yeah, the comics have different schools of thought on this as well. Depends who's writing them. There's also the possibility that Banner and the Hulk's personality have merged into being this new thing. It seems a bit more Banner-like, but
yeah, that's what I thought happened. Like, they just become one, like just one up, Hulk Banner thing.
I think it's probably quite an interesting way to go, because they've had a few films with Banner struggling with the Hulk, whereas now there's a bit more of a sort of character development where he's kind of brought the two of them together. It's probably quite an interesting direction for them to go. It
would be quite nefarious if Banner had been like, nah, I'm the only one that gets to exist, see you later Hulk, and there's this kind of other being that's just stamped down. Of course, it could be in a future film, the Hulk comes back with a vengeance. They could do the Mr. Fix-It story, which is the Grey Hulk thing, where he becomes a bouncer in Las Vegas. And a bit of a douche, to be honest. But that's kind of the Hulk personality, about as smart as it can get, so to speak. And then, yeah, Banner's a bit of a sociopath at some point. It's all weird stuff, it really is. Don't ever read the Hulk comics, they just go all over the place. They really do. Kat, do you have any thoughts on their personalities?
I don't like this evolved thing. It kind of very easily dismissed the conflict that was such a big thing in Infinity War and in previous films. Anytime Banner was on the screen, the conflict was quite a big sort of issue. And then here we just get oh yeah, we worked things out, everything's fine now, like, bye. And it's like, I'm not content with this. It's not enough for you to just tell me that everything's fine. It does seem like the personality of Hulk isn't there. About the spirit, it's a very good question with the Ancient One, etc. It feels like Hulk has been reduced to his physicality and just the body, and then Banner has control of like the spirit / personality. Not happy with it. One of the character development aspects of the film that I really didn't care for, and I hope it's not true, because I would like to see that worked out on screen. I would like to see this be resolved, if it was resolved, or if it is going to be resolved. Just being told is not satisfying.
I'd agree that the off-screen aspect of it was a bit disappointing, I don't know. It feels like they had to put in a few kind of bridging points between Infinity War and Endgame that I don't know how they decided what was going to make it and what wasn't going to make it, or whether or not this film would have been 17 hours long if they tried to put everything in.
Yeah, Banner has always been kind of underwritten in these films. He's never really a driving force of the story. He gets kind of swept up in it, and that does happen here.
That's not true. What about that one where it's just him and Thor having a fight for like 25 minutes.
Yeah, so Thor and the Hulk fight in that film, and then Banner gets swept up in Thor's escape plan. And that's about it. So he's not really a driving force of anything. He's just kind of there. Not that it's not good, it's just that he's just kind of there. Age of Ultron, he goes along with whatever Stark wants to do. Infinity War, he's in the background. Banner's in the background of everything that's going on. But doesn't, other than tell people who Thanos is, doesn't really do anything. So I think Banner suffers from the fact that he doesn't get solo films and everyone else does. You know, he's kind of...
What are you talking about? Hulk has had like plenty of solo movies.
No, he's had, in the MCU he's had one. And it wasn't...
Oh, the MCU, yeah, but he still had like his own movies.
Yeah, but
count towards
this is the MCU though, like it doesn't count. And also the one movie he did get doesn't really count. Like it sort of kind of counts, but like nobody rewatches The Incredible Hulk.
I do.
And nobody... Oh, really?
Of course.
Bless you. That's adorable.
I like The Incredible Hulk.
Oh, bless. Okay, fine. It's one of my least favorite MCU movies. I've seen it
Massive Norton
once. I've seen it the once and then never again. Yeah, fair enough.
Yeah, I like it. But I agree it doesn't count because they've spent all this time trying to forget it. It's used as footage in the Avengers to prove that Hulk exists. And General Ross turns up as Secretary Ross. So that's some kind of holdover from them. But I think Hulk really needs a couple of solo movies, you know, and he was missing a couple of solo movies to kind of talk through what those issues were and deal with them properly, rather than have him be kind of a hanger-on in other people's films. He suffers from that a bit. I mean, I know that Marvel can't actually make solo Hulk films without Universal permission. There's some kind of weird deal in place there, but still. It's a shame. I still don't know whether they're the same person or different people inhabiting the same body. I would hope that Banner hasn't just murdered like this other voice in his head. That would be kind of gruesome. And not at all heroic.
I just took it to be one of those details that like the film is kind of tacitly asking us to quietly or overlook while it gets on with the story.
Yeah, because you need a smart Hulk for the plot. You need him. He needs to decide to do the snap himself and all that stuff. Could you imagine stroppy child Hulk deciding that? I mean, I would like to see the conversation. You know, come on, Hulk. You just need to snap your fingers. Come on. Meanwhile, he's like throwing them across the room. Shall we move on to the next question?
Yeah.
Okay. At random, I'll pick Dave. Knowing how it all turns out, would you prefer to be snapped or a survivor?
Is this based on would you miss out on 5 years ish?
Yeah. Would you happily? Would you prefer to be like dead for 5 years and then come back, or would you rather live those 5 years?
I'd prefer to be dead. That's a weird. Like, do you want to be dead
on pause rather than dead?
That's basically the same, though, isn't it? Like, if life's on pause, then you're in a coma, kind of. So, I'd rather live, even though it's like a sad world. Like, it's gone after this disaster. I won't want to have like, oh yeah, I'll try and being dead a go, and then it being like, oh yeah, but yeah, even if you know that it's going to come back and be fine, it's still a weird. That seems like a weird sort of idea. Like, because you're just missing out on 5 years. No, I definitely want to be alive. That seems like yeah. It's all about life. I gotta live.
Alive and miserable, then.
You can still.
But not everyone's miserable, though.
Yeah, that guy goes on a date.
And cries by dessert.
Still on a date.
Some people would have been happy that certain people were gone. Then 5 years later, they're like, "Oh no, they're back."
This is true. I think I'd rather live because, in theory, all the popular podcasters have been snapped away, so I can swoop in and be the most popular podcaster.
You have only half the listenership of the podcast, though.
Well, it would still be better.
Did any of you guys get like the sense though, like that during that movie that it was like more than 50%? Because it looked like there was definitely times when they had like shots of like streets and stuff where I was like zombie apocalypse levels, and you're talking like 90%. Looked like 90% desertion.
I guess the idea was that everybody who survived just kind of gave up, didn't know what to do with themselves.
Yeah, it was a very glum world. Like, there wasn't any birds or anything. And
Yeah.
Hawkeye got it pretty bad that all his family disappeared.
Yeah.
That was rough.
He made his family disappear.
Yeah. Also, another thing is it might lower the housing prices enough so that I could afford one. And then
but
some guy comes back 5 years later and says, "You're my house."
if 50% of the population disappeared though, right? Like, you would just be like, you'd get on with it.
Well, some people did, like Audi. They still make cars for Tony Stark and the Avengers.
How did they do it?
I don't know.
How do they do it?
They probably just took the cars that weren't used anymore and just put the Audi dealer on. Like, oh, we got a few Ferraris here, and then the millionaire owners have died. So just like screwdriver off the Ferrari logo, like put on the old Audi one and give it like a repaint or something so it looks a bit different.
You're Audi now,
There you go.
Dave.
Brand new Audi.
I just feel like, I don't know, how do you guys feel about that? But I felt like they made it look like
The Skywalking Dead.
yeah, like, I think, do you know when that guy's like, the kid's going down the street and there's like, the whole street's deserted and all the houses are like empty and all the cars are like rusting and people have to get around on bikes. I was like, it's only 50% of the population. And like,
That's
and
only
most
3.5 billion people.
yeah, but think
Let's get
about
on with
it. No, but think about it, right? What percentage of them would have been like your old age pensioners, and what percentage would have been kids? Because then that leaves you all the responsible adults.
I'd say probably about 50% of each of those demographics.
Like, I'd understand if 50% of the population were wiped out and they only left the OAPs and the babies, because like they would all die.
Classic
But, like,
zombie apocalypse
But like,
populations.
if you're talking about having like a really, I don't know, I just feel like they just made it look far worse than I think it actually.
Although, how many people do you think killed themselves when they realised that their entire family had disappeared?
Well, they should not have lost hope. And why would they do that? Why would they think that that was like an outcome that they should have? Did they not think, well, hold on a minute, this could be sorted?
No, it's quite a...
Who in their right mind would think this could be sorted? Unless you're one of the Avengers. Well, except for the Avengers. Okay, fine.
I went on the Avengers website and they said they're working on it and we'll be on it, so we'll get back in touch soon.
Yeah, it take a lot of hope to be like,
we're working on
maybe
something.
half of the universe will come back.
The Avengers Twitter account says, "Don't worry, guys, we're on it. # bringing everyone back."
So wait a minute, right? So, okay, so in this like theory, you've got this deserted street because everyone who's like a Hawkeye has lost their family, and so they've killed themselves. And then, so what happens when the family comes back? Because the person who's killed themselves is not going to come back.
Nope.
They come back and go, oh no, like, Jared's topped himself.
well, yeah. Yeah, kind of.
That's not a happy
Now we arrive at
celebratory.
the fundamental problem of Endgame.
It's like,
not
it's
everything
like the worst
would
kind
be.
of Romeo and Juliet. Then what do? Do the family then kill themselves?
Think of all the
Because they're
planets
like,
who don't even have Avengers Twitter and they wouldn't have even been able to see that.
So
They'd have all
kind
killed
of,
themselves.
Can I
We've got
sort of ask
Marvel.
a follow-on question?
Yeah.
So, like, the follow-on question from, like, would you rather be, like, snapped or come back? How do people feel? How do you guys feel about the fact that it's all basically reversed?
Well, I feel happy about it, but I don't understand how they've tried to explain it to me.
I mean,
I'm
that's a separate thing.
I'm okay with it. I
Yeah, I'm
think it's
okay
going to
with
be
it.
reversed in some way. Although what I was surprised by was this kind of 5 years later thing is allowed to continue. I expected it to kind of, well, we've rolled it back to the point of the snap, so nothing's changed.
Like
But-
2 seconds later.
Yeah.
Yeah, basically, yeah. People were gone for like 2 seconds and now they're back. It's fine. So I'm glad they stuck with the changes that that happened to these people over the 5 years are still valid. You know, they still went through that. The world still suffered an insane loss. The universe still suffered an insane loss. But now everyone's back, and that probably brings its own set of problems as well.
Mm-hmm.
Because, you know, as I said, when I've bought someone's house, because now I can afford it, because half the world's dead. Now I'm living in someone's house. They come back 5 years later and say, "Why are you in my house? What's all your furniture doing here? Get out." And I'm like, no, I own this house. I thought you were dead. So,
oh my gosh, but this is just like in the Flight of the Navigator, though, where the kid goes away into space, comes back, goes to his family home, and it's like the future, but he feels like he's only been away for 5 minutes. Like, how do we know it's 5 years? Like, it's not 5 years for...
Right. But how is this like Kung Fu Panda? That's what I want to know.
Hold on. There is a secret ingredient?
it wouldn't be 5 years for the people that have disappeared. It would be like 5 seconds. So they'll come back.
Doesn't Spider-Man say, and Gus isn't agreeing with me, and he probably knows more because he has seen it twice and I've not, but like, I feel like 5 years that they're away, though, they've been existing in like a space together.
No, because Peter says, I must have passed out, and then I woke up, and Doctor Strange was there, and you weren't here, and then
yeah, so he wasn't there.
Thing.
But Doctor Strange, like, yeah, they were together. Like, were they not together in the same
Only once they
other
came
place?
snapped back to reality.
Yeah.
How do we know that he's referring to that, though? And not to, he got disappeared and then re-emerged?
Logic, my dear boy.
But, like, what about... So, do you know, like, in Willy Wonka, with Mike TV, he gets broken down into, like, a million pieces. And then reassembles.
Yes.
So that's, like, being dusted. So then he's, like, being dusted, and it's like he's been teleported somewhere else.
Yeah, but he's not using... Thanos wasn't using Wonka TV.
Or what about the
How do we know that?
Where they had
But how do we know that? How do we know that he
rehydrating
wasn't...
device? You know, the people were turned to
Water.
dust and they rehydrated them.
Well, how do we know that they've not just been taken away and, like, Mike TV'd into, like, another space?
Because Peter Parker tells you, because he says, I passed out and then I woke up and then Doctor Strange was there. Like, no time had passed for him.
Yeah.
Or anyone else. Anyone else.
What was Kat's question? Why did we like...
Were we okay with it? I'm
I
guessing
feel
you were
like...
okay with it, Kat.
This is one of my problems, sort of. It kind of feels too easy somehow, and I know they go through a lot to get there, but by negating the loss of everything, it just kind of like renders this whole story a bit like, oh well, it's all fine and we've only lost like a couple people, so you know, everything's fine, everyone's well, woohoo. And I'm just like, I don't know, it's been a decade of like emotional turmoil and it just feels like I've been robbed of like catharsis somehow. I don't like that it's all easily reversed, and I think
easily reversed. It takes them
it is.
movie.
It literally takes a snap of fingers at the end of the day. And I'm not about it. I that's not what I expected, I guess. Yeah, I don't know. It's and we don't really sit with it enough to like see how that plays out. Like Craig said, you know, like what are the repercussions of having everyone come back? We don't really get to see any of that. So like, you know, it's just kind of like this abstract thing. Yeah, I'm not sure I like it. Anyway.
I think that Homecoming will probably cover it. Not Homecoming.
The end of Infinity War did feel like a big loss because, you know, got punched. So many people get dusted. But I still felt like in the end, in the next film, in Endgame, that their restoration was going to be inevitable.
I think because the ending of Infinity War was such a cataclysmic downer, Then I think for a lot of people, the only way that they would feel any kind of vindication, like for having sat through that, would have been like if the people were somehow brought back. Just because it would feel that the Avengers, like as a team, there really wasn't much else that they would have been able to work towards. I do agree with what you're saying, like that it was a bit too simple a solution, but I really can't think of any other way that they could have done it.
I feel like it was pretty complicated.
Okay.
Like, just take them. Oh, yeah, I don't know. There were so many moments where I was like, oh, they're not going to do it. Like, what happens next? And I was a bit like, maybe they've played us for fools this whole time because maybe they're going to make us think that it's easy to bring everyone back. And it won't happen. So then when they finally get there and then they make it happen, I was just kind of like, thank fuck. Because I was like, absolutely knackered.
Yeah. So there's an interesting follow-on question from Julie, who asks, was Tony's decision to bring everyone back into the present day so he could keep his daughter selfish? She was kind of getting at the fact that, all right, he gets to keep his new life, but there's all sorts of other untold horrible things that he's allowing to happen, like, as we alluded to, the suicides and things like that. So it's an interesting one. So yeah, of course it's a selfish decision. I think pretty much every decision that Tony Stark makes is selfish in one way or another. So yeah, he was definitely looking out for himself and his bubble when he made that choice.
I think he's not thinking selfishly though about it, because he sees how happy like his wife is, and doesn't want to take that away from her. Although I did think that he would though, because you know how we went to the Double Bill, and you know in the movie before when he's like, oh, I had this really strange dream that I had a daughter. And I was like, oh my god, they're going to go back to this moment in time because he because of that scene where he's so convinced that they've had like a daughter and thought they were going to raise her. But I think he's not being selfish. I think he's considering feelings of Pepper Potts would have carried the baby. This baby. You know, that life, I don't know. But it seems like that's a way of how they would have resolved it anyway. Bringing everyone to that timeline doesn't seem to make sense for them to go back in time.
Yeah. Anyone else?
I think it is selfish. I think it contributes to that sense of like having your cake and eating it too. You know, we get everybody back, and also anyone who was born in those 5 years stays. So like you don't lose anything. You know, you gain everyone you lost, and you know his daughter stays. So it's like, yeah, and like he ultimately, I feel like if he hadn't had a kid, they would have time traveled back to before the snap and just prevented it from happening or reversing it at that moment rather than leaving those 5 years. Yeah, I think so.
So that's why
they would have had no reason to think about this. Like it was entirely Iron Man thinking, oh well, man, like I've had a kid in that time, so you know, so it was anyone else who's had a kid.
So it was a choice, because like this whole time I've been thinking that it was the only way that they could make it work. I didn't realize it was a conscious choice.
He said he would only do it if he didn't lose what he'd gained in the 5 years.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, it's 100% a choice. And like, and 100% because it was his own, like it was Iron Man making that choice because he'd had a kid. If he hadn't had a kid, that conversation wouldn't even have been had. They would have been like, well, let's go back then, since we can sort out time travel, and we're going to go back and like just instantly reverse it, and then it'll be like it never happened, and then the universe would also never have had to have suffered the massive loss. They wouldn't even have known it had happened. But if they'd done that, then like I don't know that Stark would even stop to consider other people having had children, but because he'd had children, like, so yeah, like I ultimately think like it's very much a selfish thing, and for me, it kind of like, yeah, like, I don't know. I'm not happy.
I don't think they could have done it any other way, because there has to be some kind of narrative progression. If they'd just been able to go back, and yeah, even if he had a daughter or didn't have a daughter, and they'd just gone and erased the sort of final act of Infinity War, I don't think that's a great ending to Saga, because you're basically just saying it was all a dream, or we can just snap the bad stuff out of existence. They had to kind of do something where there'd be some kind of forward momentum.
Also, like, what's the deal with like going back in time? Because if the what is it? Because they're saying the whole Back to the Future is bullshit thing. But I was thinking of like doing butterfly effect when you keep them trying to go back and change something, and then it gets worse because everything has like a knock-on effect. But they're saying that doesn't apply. So if they went back to the time of where the universe got snapped, wouldn't it still happen?
It would in their timeline, but not in this new one.
So don't they have to stay in this 5 years in the future?
Although it's been established that the time stone can actually reverse time, because you see Thanos do that with Vision in the last film.
So like beyond, so like they can get beyond.
Yeah, so in theory they could have just pressed rewind until they got to a suitable point and then stopped it from there. Which is maybe a riskier plan than collecting Infinity Stones and unsnapping, I don't know. But yeah, it is largely because of what Stark wanted, and I think that's perfectly in character with what's been established about him. He's never really been concerned with anything outside of his bubble, as a lot of people in the world aren't, I suppose. But yeah, it's perfectly in keeping with what he would do, and that was kind of his condition for helping. It is weird that no one disagrees with him, I suppose. I'm surprised that Cap isn't like, well, there's more than just your kid, Tony, but he's just kind of happy.
Is it because though, like, they're so desperate? Because it's like he is really the only. I mean, I know Ant-Man comes up with the whole like, this is what could happen, and then Hulk helps and stuff, but like they need him. They need him to do it. Like they legit can't do it without him.
Yeah, desperation will definitely be part of it.
And we know that Doctor Strange watched all the other eventualities anyway.
Yeah, and this is the only one that would work.
I suppose the end of it doesn't matter. Like, if it's in the version where Iron Man snaps and and it goes back to 2017 or whatever, 2018, whenever Infinity War is set, then that's not really a loss, is it? Because Thanos has already been defeated. So it's not like he'd have seen that and gone, oh, that works out badly. Unless it would have, maybe going back to the original thing, he would have worked out, I don't know. But I can't see it being like, if they went back to the day of the snap, like it never happened, sort of thing, being a loss. Because, like, at that point, Thanos is already gone, so what's there?
Yeah, well, I was just assuming that absolutely every single theory that anybody could come up with about something else they could have done was one of the 14 million like the futures, like the Doctor Strange envisioned, like which ended up not working.
Yeah,
meaning that the events of Endgame were literally the only possible way that things could have played out, and resulted in Thanos' ultimate defeat.
Well, the thing is, if you can go back and you can change things within your own timeline, you have no way of knowing what the repercussions of those changes would be. So, Rhodey's choice, or Rhodey's idea of, let's go back and like slit Thanos' throat when he's a baby. It's like, it's kind of grisly, but okay. But,
but they can't do that though, because they can't.
No, well, let's say for the sake of argument that they can. You don't know that someone else as bad as him will come into play.
Well, that's the thing, like the butterfly effect. You can't go back and then do that because you don't know like what other timelines you're going to create.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know. And I think they acknowledge that they can't use that as like an option because it would just change like too much.
Yeah. Okay. Shall we move on to the next question?
Yeah.
Let's.
Natalie, why don't you throw in one of yours?
Okay. Well, I actually had quite a good. Well, I've been sent quite a few, but there's one that I got asked at work today. So this one is from James, and he asks us, "How did we feel about the moment with the hammer?"
That was very cool.
That was very cool.
Awesome. Yes, I think it was like one of my favorite scenes, like for sure. I was just like, oh, I don't know, that I got really excited in that scene. Gusby?
I don't know, I'm quite protective of Mjolnir, so I was a bit like, what? But then it was pretty cool to see him wielding the shield and the hammer.
Such a cool, like, that whole sequence, like, I don't know, I felt like I was in like a video game or something when he's just like going across the like whole screen, just bashing everyone, and it was just amazing. And I was like, yeah, I thought it was great. Just, visually, I don't know, I was pretty excited.
Bringing the lightning. Yeah, it was good.
Like, I want to go see the movie, I think, again, because I really enjoyed that scene. I want to see that.
Yeah, I love that moment. It actually reminded me of the similar moment in The Force Awakens, but I think this was more effective.
The Rey moment.
Yeah. It was set up wonderfully, because we've known since Age of Ultron that Cap has that potential. And it's good to see that pay off, before we won't see the character anymore.
Oh, and his eyes, like, it was so cool. I thought it was great.
And when Thor was like, I knew it! You were kind of wary of it last time, but okay. I guess the situation's a bit more desperate at the moment. You're about to get stabbed with your own axe, so...
Yeah, he has a whole new weapon now, so he's fine. Like, one made just for him, so... Yeah. I don't know.
Yeah, I thought it was a pretty spectacular moment as well. It was one of the ones like kind of punch the air, hell yeah kind of things.
Yeah.
Yeah. Although the cynic in me did consider later that Cap being able to wield Mjolnir was also necessary for later on when he had to return it to the correct point in the timeline, because otherwise he wouldn't have been able to lift it.
It also
to put it back.
It also makes Cap basically useless in the fight if he can't wield it, because he's no match against Thanos, not at all. He gets thrown around pretty readily when he tries. I mean, this is a guy that can go toe-to-toe with the Hulk, so Cap hasn't got much hope.
Kind of forgotten that the whole Age of Ultron thing where it like wobbles and stuff. My sister had to remind me of that scene because like I couldn't remember it that much, but so I was kind of surprised. But then I was like, why am I surprised? I'm pretty sure I've seen him wielding Mjolnir on the cover of like one of the the comics.
Oh, yeah,
is it like one of the Civil War and stuff, like where he's got it? And I just had this image in my head of like him already like possessing it. So I don't know. I thought it was great.
But the images that appear on the covers of comics aren't stiffly canonical in any kind of way. Like they're just like cool art.
Yeah, but
he has wielded it a bunch of times.
Yeah, like the fact
got it
that
around loads.
Whenever he's doing DIY.
Yeah, I'm doing DIY.
It's whatever qualities that the hammer recognises as worthiness, Cap also has them. If equal to worthy, allow lift, or whatever it is.
Yes, and exactly what those qualities are has always been a bit nebulous.
Yeah.
Should I ask you guys some of the other questions? Because I think you guys will be really good at answering them.
Fire away.
I think this will have to be my last question. So.
Okay, well, I think you'll like this one then, because it's a doozy. Okay, Callum asks, now that Thanos is gone, not entirely, but for the foreseeable future, who will be the next big bad? Will it be Adam Warlock? Will it be Namor? Is it Namor?
Namor.
Or will he be anti-hero? Galactus? Mephisto? Doctor Doom? When do you think the next big bad will be teased? Is there this Far From Home? Or will we need to wait until the Eternals?
I don't think we're going to get a big bad for a while. I think they're going to take a break from the really high stakes universe ending stuff, because you've just made something that's very, very difficult to top. So I think we're going to have some quieter stories for a while. Doctor Doom is probably your best bet, because Fantastic Four now exist, or can now exist, and he's the biggest villain there is. in terms of the Marvel comics anyway. There's nothing he can't get his hands on. Galactus is more of a force of nature than a villain. So, he'd be a bit like Dormammu, actually, that we've already had, I think.
Okay.
He'd be more like that. Namor
Forgotten
would be an
about that.
anti-hero. Marvel's Aquaman, basically. King of Atlantis. Adam Warlock, I don't know. I think he'd be a Guardians villain. Not so much a big bad for the MCU.
Why even bother having a small villain if you can have a massive villain? Why did he even bother?
I think there will be a sense of there's a power vacuum gone with because obviously Thanos was a well-known universal dictator guy, and I suppose they're it's these dudes on Earth that were finally got round to killing him. So I think it would be quite nice to see another big baddie show up. I'm not sure, maybe I do quite like Mephisto. He's fun. Let's see Loki give it another go, but he's dead. But I want to see. I don't think we've had enough. I want an evil Loki again. I think a proper Loki, a Norse god style illusion Loki. And I think that'd be quite. I don't know. I think there's still Loki hungry.
I don't know that that's very likely.
Yeah, but
they've taken a very different approach.
Yeah, but we had. Cause I was thinking because the past Loki steals the Tesseract, doesn't he? And then Scarpers. So could we have that? Could we have that past sort of Avengers era Loki show up, or?
Well, that was Sandy's question, so I might as well just ask that just now. Where do you think Loki went, and do you feel it's a deliberate door opener to a Loki movie or two? I think that's actually set up for the Loki TV series that we're getting on Disney Plus when that comes out. So it seems like we're going to get maybe a reality hopping Loki with access to the Space Stone, just cutting about doing stuff. When he was kind of at his Avengers height of evil, but I don't know. I don't think Loki will come back as a big bad. I think that ship has sailed.
What I think what happened was that I agree that there's probably not going to be any real hint of a big bad for a while yet. Though when they get around to doing a film of the Eternals, then I think that would be a good point to introduce Overmind as a villain. It was just an incredibly. Being with practically god level psychic powers, who's able to get into people's heads and bend them too as well. And so after a villain like Thanos, who is essentially a purely physical threat, and having someone who is more of a mental villain would be a good change.
Yeah, I actually think Mephisto could be a shout now to think about it. The reason for that is. So the Ancient One talks about when you remove the Infinity Stones from a given reality, it opens it up to attack from the forces of darkness, whatever those are, right? But so in the main MCU reality, the Infinity Stones are not there; they've been destroyed. So in theory, that's opened them up to all these threats from these forces
from
of
other
darkness.
things.
And you don't get much darker than Mephisto.
Should we just say who for everyone? I'm only vaguely aware Mephisto is a devil, yeah.
Yeah, he's the MCU devil.
So what the hell's Mr. Doctor Doom?
Doctor Doom is a really
Mr. Doctor Professor Doom.
Professor Doom would have been better.
Professor
Doom.
No, it's all about the alliteration. Doctor Doom. He is a genius-level dictator who runs his own country.
Just his own country?
Yeah.
What about his own universe? What about his own universe, mate?
Well, he has designs on running the universe.
Yes, and he has an inexhaustible army of robotic clones of himself called Doombots. And
they seem cute.
And every single time that he was defeated, it usually end up as being, actually it was a Doombot and it wasn't the real him.
Wasn't that a song by Hanson?
Doombat.
Oh my god.
Doombat.
Oh,
Dun,
God.
dun, dun, dun,
Maybe
that-
Hanson's the next MCU villain.
Oh my god, can we actually like reach out to Hanson and see if they can make that a song?
No.
Because like I would listen to that.
Sure, give it a go. See what happens.
Can I ask a quick question before Isaac runs away again? Because I have another one that kind of harks back to some stuff that we talked about, but it's kind of interesting because we didn't talk about this one angle.
Okay.
Yeah, okay. So, Rebecca in Nova Scotia asks, all of the children who survived are now 5 years older than all their friends who came back. The kids who came back, do they just go to school like nothing happened? Are they back in the grade they were in before? What about the kids who were left behind? Were they in school? What if their parents were gone? What happened to them then? And this made me think of Spider-Man, because you know, like at the end, Spider-Man just cuts about like with his regular class, like everything's fine, but
I think, when Far From Home will come out, I think it'll address that a few of the kids have probably graduated, and like, I suppose, like, we know that definitely that whatever Spider-Man's friend is called is going to be in it, Ned, and MJ and Flash Thompson.
But they all just go back to school to be like, oh great, things are back to normal. But
They'll only have been able to
be.
graduate in half the subjects though, because half the teachers will have been dusted.
Maybe there's one like, it'd be funny if there was one like really thick kid who's still at school but is like 20. And it's like, oh, did you not age up as well? It's like, no, I aged up. I'm still here. It's like I found no reason to leave. I just thought I'd stick in school because I don't want to get a job or anything. I couldn't go to uni, so they just sort of left me here to just sort of learn more.
Like Kearney in The Simpsons, he's just sitting there shaving at the back of the class.
Yeah, he's just shaving. He's got his own son on the bus.
Yeah, I think Far From Home will probably address that. It'll be like, where's Mike? It's like, oh yeah, he's like 22 now. Isn't that weird?
Oh my god, this is just like that French TV show. What was it called? Les Revenants. Can't speak French.
Le Kung Fu Panda.
No, Les Revenants. Because like in that, there's like twins, and one of the girls dies, and then like 7 years later comes back, and her twin is like older, and it's just really weird.
There was a TV show that I used to watch called The 4400, where funnily enough 4,400 people were like abducted by aliens or something, and then they were returned to Earth some years later, just as they were when they left. So you had
like The Navigator.
Oh, I've never seen that. So
what? Flight of the Navigator is a classic movie from the 80s where a kid gets on a spaceship and has adventures around the world. But it's like mad time travel, and it's all about how like when he comes back, he's like not the right age, and then he has to try and get back to like his own time. It's pretty dark.
I think it'll be dealt with, but I don't know how much. They'll definitely not delve into it as much as people like us have questions about it, because
but they're good questions.
They'll just be like, he's Professor Hulk now. Some of them are 5 years older now.
Maybe he's Professor Doom now.
Well, Spider-Man.
Professor Doom is my father.
Well, Spider-Man is the kind of domestic, the smaller scale storytelling. So if it's going to be dealt with anywhere, it'll be there.
What, you think they're going to cover it in the next Spider-Man movie?
Well, they'll have to.
How are they going to cover it in the next Spider-Man movie? I think they're just going to have like they can't go, oh yeah, half my class is now like, I don't know, whatever.
But that's what I mean. I think they will. I think they'll sort of.
You think they will?
Devote, a few lines to it, and then just be like
a nod to it, but they're not actually going to.
Don't think about that anymore. That was in a different phase of the MCU. Don't look at the man behind the curtain.
Left, by the way. Isaac had to go.
Oh, that's okay. He's Dust.
He's now Dust. Yes.
Snap.
Yeah, no, they will have to deal with it in some way in Far From Home, because otherwise, what are they doing? What's the point in having continuity if you're not willing to have continuity? So, I don't know how they'll deal with it. It's very clear that the entire main cast of that film were all snap victims, because they're all just still very young.
Lucky.
Yeah. Maybe Aunt May was still about, who knows? We'll find out.
Well, definitely not Ben.
No, the kids are gone. Yeah. We shall see. It's out in July, so maybe they'll answer the question.
Can they just bring him back? Can they just go back in time and bring him back? Because since he's died.
Shall we move on to another question?
Yeah.
Go on then.
Got one.
Kat, you had some.
Yeah.
Doombot.
Doobie-dup, doobop, doobie-dup,
Doombot.
Now Hanson with Doombot.
Yeah.
Alright.
This is our interlude. That's just our interlude music.
Alright, so from Eleanor, we've got a question. How do we feel about the portrayal of women / female heroes in Endgame?
Pretty nice that they all get to cut out together again, you know? Like, that was necessary.
Yeah.
I'm being sarcastic. Sorry.
Yay. Yeah. Yeah, I felt like that moment was kind of like, part of me was like, hey, like, that's actually a really cool shot of, like, all the women. But then, at the same time, I was like, all right, we're being pandered to. I don't like being pandered to. I don't like this, actually. And then the rest of the time, just like, I can't help but feel that Black Widow really got shafted. Not just by dying. Like, the dying is fine. Somebody had to. But, like, she doesn't get a funeral. She doesn't get recognition for, like, sort of running the ship of the Avengers for the 5 years, like, during the time skip. Like, it's implied she's the only one who's, like, been keeping the thing afloat and kind of, like, giving people hope and whatnot. And, at the end, like, she kind of thanklessly dies, and then she doesn't even get a funeral at the end, but Tony gets one, so, you know, there's that. I don't know. It's also, like Captain Marvel is hilariously underused again because, like, she's super powerful. And, like, if they had her there the whole time, she'd just kind of go, whip, 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 there we go. All right, everything's fine.
Yeah.
Next. Which is part of why I really like her, because, like, you know, she doesn't take any, like, extraneous time just, like, dilly-dallying. Like, there's no time for that, you know? Like, she comes in, does a job, like, gets out. But then that means that she's only in this film for, like, 10 minutes, maybe.
She was in it, like, so much less than I thought she was going to be, because I'm sure...
truly.
Like, one of my predictions was that she was going to be in it, like, so much after we saw her in her own movie. And... like, she's in it for, like, 5 minutes and then comes back at the end to be like, oh, yeah, I've saved those other universes. Like,
Yeah, and also, you know, like, I just destroyed Thanos' ship, like, in 2 seconds. You're welcome.
It's a pretty cool
there's
entrance,
just... Yeah,
it's almost the
for
Justice League
sure.
Superman problem, though. It's, you know, when Superman turns up in Justice League, it's like, why are we here? He's got...
Well, they should think about that. Also, who's watching Justice League?
True.
It's slightly above average.
But, like, seriously, though, I have to agree with you, Kat. Like, I feel awful because I want more, like, obviously I want more female representation in the superhero movies, but then it's like, when they do it, I'm like, oh, God, could they not have done this, like, another way that feels, like, more, I don't know, like, truer, worthy, I don't really have the right word, but...
Organic,
yeah. But, like, when they have that scene where it's, like, all the women just ganging up on whatever that person, I can't remember her name, and they're all like, oh, she's not alone, you know? It's, like, great, but, you know, I wanted it to be cool, I wanted to like it, and I just find it really, like, ugh. Like, no, I can't be concise with my criticism because I don't really know how I feel about it, but it just makes me feel really comfortable.
So I really like what they were doing with Black Widow at the start of the film. I really like. I don't know. I thought Scarlett Johansson did a really good job of playing this kind of broken, barely holding it together version of this character. It was unlike anything we'd seen from her before. So you know, I said in my review that the Avengers, certainly at the start of the movie, are the most human we've ever seen them, and I think that's an example of that. And one of my favourite moments in the final battle is when Scarlet Witch turns up and just pretty much crushes Thanos with her power. I've always liked Scarlet Witch, she, like in the comics, and I think she's done pretty well in the films as well. And so I thought that moment was really good from her. I mean, she doesn't really do anything else, but she's not one of the original six.
It is interesting though that like it seems that a lot of the superheroes that are the most powerful are female, and yet for me, because I haven't read a lot of the comics, and I don't know all of these backstories. I'm like, why is this the first or second time that I'm only just seeing them? Like, why have they not been here the whole time? Why have they not had their own movies? Why have they not been more like accessible? Why have they not been represented like stronger? Like, it feels like they're a really major part of the MCU, or they should be, like in other areas. But I'm just like, why are they not present?
Yeah, well, I think it's largely to do with presumptive arrogance, like on the part of like the people who greenlight the productions of these things, because I think there's still an assumption that a vast majority of the fan base for the comics and these films is male, and because of that, then because it's mostly guys watching the films, then they'll want to see films about guys.
But I don't know, like, I just feel like if that's not how they were written, though, if they were written where they have created these really badass characters, why have they been left out for so long?
Just because of what Andrew was saying, it's the people making decisions high up in these companies that decide that for some reason these female superhero movies won't make money, which clearly isn't correct anymore, because look at how much money Wonder Woman made. Look how much money Captain Marvel made. I mean, as much as I had issues with it, it's very clear that there is people out there that want to see it. People want to see Wonder Woman, people want to see this stuff. So it's starting to creep in. But I think there was an assumption on the part.
Yeah, but it's starting to creep in because they're beginning to make them, not because like that's where the audience is. It's more about you can't say though that back in like 10 years ago, if they had made one of these movies about one of the strongest characters, that it would have been successful. They could have easily have integrated these movies at the same pace as the others.
Well,
I just don't know why we're not seeing them now.
There's no telling whether it would have been successful or not, but at that point people weren't willing to take the risk. And then people will draw on the examples of female-led superhero movies like Elektra or Catwoman, which weren't popular because they're crap.
Yeah, but also, what? Yeah, but are they? They're not Marvel.
Elektra
right? Is she? Ah, well, that's disappointing.
She's a Marvel character, yeah. And Catwoman's a DC character, so that using them as yardsticks is not a good way to do it because they're terrible. And then before that,
I don't know. I'm just a bit angry. I'm just a bit obviously because it just feels like
the Supergirl movie, which wasn't popular because it too is terrible. So
right.
When you've got people not making very good movies that don't make money because they're not very good movies, you can't really use that as justification for it. Let's not make movies starring.
Yeah, well, it's just a shame because it seems like people who made the comics created some amazing, strong superheroes who happen to be female, and I'm a bit annoyed that they've not been involved.
If you read how they were written in the 60s and 70s and 80s, and probably even today as well, you might think differently.
I think that the tide's turning, and probably with all the groundwork. Yeah, we've said that in this MCU canon there hasn't been any standalone female-led movies, but I think that they're definitely going in the right direction now, and hopefully the audience that they've built now, because we know it's not just men that are watching these. I think the audience is going to demand more, so hopefully in future we start to see...
I'm the audience and I'm demanding more.
Yeah, and I think there's lots of young girls and women who have enjoyed watching the Marvel movies, and they are going to demand more from studios in the future, so I'm hoping that it will begin to change.
Most of the questions we have for this podcast are from women. There you go.
Interesting. Is Scarlet Witch going to get a movie?
She is getting.
She deserves a movie.
She's getting
for sure. Yeah.
TV series.
No, I don't want a TV show though. Those are always ass.
Thanos is
Like
there.
I won't.
Well said.
Like I won't even bring
America's
myself
ass.
to like watch it. Like I just can't. I just can't even like. Even if there's one that looks semi-interesting, I'm still just like, no, it's their TV show and it's going to be trash.
Well, I'm looking forward to the Disney Plus output. They've got some interesting stuff on the go. The Scarlet Witch one is called WandaVision, so I think it's about her creating some kind of alternate reality of some sort. That's the impression I get. But it could be all right. But I don't know what films they've got planned. I know there'll be a Captain Marvel 2, because the first one made like $1 billion, so they'll make another one. So you'll get that if you want that. I'm sure there'll be others in the pipeline as well that we don't even know about. Because they can't announce anything because there was massive...
Hear
spoilers
us
attack.
speak. Give us more female-led superhero movies.
And I think you will get that.
I think you will get that. Would have been better.
Okay, so another question?
Yeah.
This one is from Bob. Do you think the Infinity Stone retrieval plan was the best possible one, or was there an easier way to do it? Also, is there going to be a Kneel Before Blog /pod class trip to New Asgard?
Oh.
New Asgard is about an hour away from Edinburgh.
Is it actually?
Yeah.
Is it actually?
St. Abs, yeah.
Right. When are we going?
Let's discuss that offline. Let's not anything that listeners will hold us to.
Oh, but that could be fun.
I thought it looked like a lot of scenery where I grew up. So
Oh, really?
yeah.
I was like, oh, that's Norway.
Well, they were referencing it by having a load of Scottish stuff in the scene. You know, there was Innocent Gun
NXT
that
cake.
Thor was knacking.
Yeah.
A bottle of Iron Brew on the windowsill.
Iron Brew.
Was there Iron Brew?
There was.
Iron Brew's made it to an
bottle of Iron
Avengers movie.
Yep.
That's exciting.
Was it original recipe or new recipe? That's the
Follows
go
up
with
the deep fried
original.
kebab from Infinity War.
Some deep fried Mars bars.
So, Bob, there may be a class trip. Who knows?
Yes.
I've
Let's
actually
say
given a
yes.
lot of thought to this Infinity Stone retrieval plan before I got asked the question, because that's what I do. I sit and think about stuff like this. Because it's much better than thinking about my real life, which is really horrible. So,
Oh,
so for the
this took a
Tesseract,
turn.
Oh no! Oh no! I'm not laughing at you, Craig. I'm not laughing at you.
you're not laughing at me. That's good. It was a joke. Oh, sorry. So, for the Tesseract, I came up with 4 better options. One, they could get it out of Asgard's vault while they were getting hold of the ether, because that would be easier. It's just sitting there. 2, the bottom of the ocean after it gets dropped down there in the first Captain America movie. The space
Oh my
base in
God.
Captain Marvel.
Is it the sapphire from Titanic?
Part of the
Oh
ocean.
God.
I think it's more Endgame surpassing Titanic's box office record. Also, there's Loki's secret base during Avengers. Hawkeye knows where that is. Could have went there.
No,
So-
but wait. I've got a reason for why they went back to that time. Don't they choose that time because that's where they go get their like red vials from?
No, that
And
was
they've-
later.
They
No,
had
that
to
was
go
a
and-
different time.
They had to
Yeah.
go and do that as Plan B.
Yeah, because
Oh.
they screwed up Plan A.
Yeah, it's after Loki absconded with the Tesseract the first time they tried it.
Yeah. So what they could have done was just said, by the way, Thor and Rocket, can you just get the Tesseract while you're there so we can have a spare? That'd be all right. You never know when you might need another Tesseract. The Mind Stone, the only easier thing I could think of to get hold of that was just when it was in Stark's Tower at the beginning of Age of Ultron. Could have just wandered in, grabbed it, and left.
Yep.
No hassles there. The Reality Stone, go to the Collector's Museum sometime after the Dark World. It'd just be sitting there. Time Stone, just go and ask Doctor Strange at the beginning of Infinity War. He'd probably give it to you.
No, you need Tilda Swinton to be like, ooh, he must have given it for a reason.
And then the Power Stone, any point in history that it happens to be in the temple, rather than the day that Chris Pratt turns up. So, there we go.
Right. But if you were a screenwriter, how would you do it? Oh, how they did it.
Yeah. Well, I mean, my version of the movie would be really boring because they would just get the stones and then.
Well, you think that they would just get the stone, or it could be that you open up different possibilities and new problems.
Yeah.
You don't know because you're not there.
Well, I like to think that Doctor Strange saw your plan as part of his 14 million.
And then the Soul Stone, you're just buggered. You have no choice when. I mean, it doesn't matter when you go and get that; it's the same outcome.
Guys, that scene was pretty emotional.
Well, that's also Sarah's question. Who would you rather die, Hawkeye or Black Widow? It's quite a savage question.
I thought there was a moment when they were both going to die. Because Isaac's prediction at the start had been that Hawkeye was dying, and I was so convinced that was true. I was like, that makes no sense. But then it also made me feel bad that I thought that because Black Widow has no children, that it makes her more dispensable. So then I felt really awful about that too. But
Sarah also asked why Nebula didn't warn them what was going to happen. Because she knew what the cost was.
I think that they go in that they know that, right?
No.
No, it seems like they only kind of have that conversation once they get there.
Mm-hmm.
It's lucky that they sent the two people that
I don't know. Friends. I don't think even Nebula knew exactly what the cost was. All she knew was Thanos came back, Gamora didn't. She didn't know that Gamora didn't come back because the stone requires it. Whenever they gave Hawkeye the little miniature Milano, the ship, I was like, oh, they're going to space. They're not going to kill the guy who has a family, so Nat's going to die. I knew in that moment Nat was going to die.
Oh, totally.
So, then when they get to Vormir and they have the whole, no, I'm going to die, no, I'm going to die, no, I'm going to die, I felt robbed of what should have been, a long moment where we get to, appreciate Nat for, giving herself up. But instead, Hawkeye had to be like, oh no, it's going to be me. So then I was like, oh, okay, are we mourning him then? No, it's not. Okay, oh no, wait, it's him. There's just at least two back and forths. And I really didn't like this. I felt that it robbed us of properly mourning Natasha, properly appreciating her sacrifice. And the fact that she's giving her life not just for the half of the universe and blah blah blah, but for her friend so that he can go back to his family. And instead we get half a second of the recycled theme with the that they used for Gamora, which it's a beautiful piece of music. But it's the same. And so it's oh, okay, same feelings, but shorter scene and less gravitas somehow. Just I don't know, it felt cheap and I was very disappointed in this scene. Very disappointed.
And another thing that they could have done that moment was because I think another reason why they decided that Natasha was the one who was to sacrifice herself was because I think it was intended as a culmination of the road to redemption in which she'd been putting herself on. Because it harks back to the original Avengers movie when she talks about having red in her ledger and her need to atone for all the terrible things that she's done in her life.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that moment of sacrifice would have been better if that had actually been acknowledged. And she'd actually said, this is why this needs to be me. But not only for allowing Hawkeye to go back to his family, but also making her sacrifice about her as well, not just about Hawkeye.
I feel like it's hinted at though, that whole past, she's much more willing. But I have to be honest, Kat, I felt really differently about that scene because I was so convinced it was Hawkeye. The whole time I was so because I just really believed that the people I was with knew, just would have known, had read more or just knew more what was happening. So I was convinced that it was Hawkeye, and that's why I was whoa, this is pretty tense. And then I thought, oh, maybe one of them's wrong, maybe they got it wrong, maybe it's both of them, maybe it's Black Widow, and I don't know, I kind of enjoyed it, and it was kind of one last little one last little dance for them to have before she died.
Aww. That's kind of sweet. I wish I had I had the same reaction. Like, I was so disappointed in the moment as I was watching it that, like I don't know, like, it just, like, diminished my enjoyment of, like, the rest of it. I was, like, so aware of, like, the artificial nature of the scene. Like, I was aware that my feelings were being played with. And yeah, like, honestly, I wish I didn't know that. It's not a good time, I have to say.
Yeah, no, I thought I did enjoy that scene just because it kept me sort of like on edge. Like, it played me well. Like, it yeah.
I mean,
But I'm with you on not having a funeral for her, but then I'm like, well, did they not do that because someone somewhere is convinced can be brought back?
I mean, you could see the following scene where they're all sitting by the lake, sort of lamenting the loss of her as her funeral, in a way, and maybe that's, you know, maybe that's the best thing.
No, unless it's directly addressed, it's not. When they're at the lake, they're lamenting the loss of Tony. Nat is nowhere mentioned.
No, I mean
at
the
no
earlier
point
scene.
is there like a which earlier scene? Sorry.
When Hulk chucks the bench.
Yeah, that one.
Oh, okay. Oh, yeah, like the 2 seconds of where's Nat? Oh, like she didn't make it. Oh, cool. Yeah, sure. That's equally as important and big as Tony getting, like, an entire funeral of people, like, sitting around with, like, flowers and solemn looks and black clothes. That is not the same, friends. I'm sorry.
I feel like it's a shame because they could have, at Tony's funeral, they could have easily discussed who they've lost and who hasn't made it. And it's really strange because it doesn't make sense for them to really have done that when the universe is still in jeopardy and they haven't resolved everything. So they can't really do it any point before Tony has been the hero. But it is weird that she's, like, totally omitted. Like, yeah, it's kind of rude.
Well, you do get someone asking if she had any family, and Cap saying, "Yeah, us." That was
and that's even worse. That's, like, super sad because it's like, yeah, us. We're the only people, and we didn't even do, like, a memorial for her.
I mean, it's not a clear, at least to me, whether Nebula knew what the cost of the Soul Stone was. I think you could read into it either way, but I wonder if it'd be cool if we'd seen a flashback to a scene where Nat and Nebula have a conversation about what's going to need to happen here. You know, where Nebula's been looking at observing these people for 5 years.
Like,
so she's identified these guys, they're best friends. These are the only people that can go and get the Soul Stone, because everyone else ain't that close. You know, let's send War Machine and Ant-Man. No one cares. It's like, oh, sorry, you're not getting the Soul Stone. Turns out you didn't like him.
But does it always have to be a person?
Yeah, I mean,
it has to. It has to be
your PlayStation
a person, and it has to be someone you. Yeah, it has to be a person and feel like you have to have feelings for them. Yeah.
So
a soul for a soul.
Yeah, so you could have this. You could have this moment where Nebula says to her, "You know, I know that you get what sacrifice is. I know that you're willing to do what it takes. Blah blah blah." And then you get to this point, and when it comes to the okay, right, who gets to die here? And then Nat could say something like, "I drank poison, so it's me." And then that decision's already made before they get there. And I think that would have been a better version of that scene. I mean, that was just me thinking about it.
But then, but can you do that? Like, that sounds almost like you're cheating your way to the Soul Stone, because I feel like if you were to go there having done something like that and then give yourself over to it, I don't know if
Hawkeye didn't sacrifice her. She sacrificed herself, so it's the same thing, really.
Okay.
I mean, Thanos threw Gamora off the edge. You know, he made that decision. He made that choice to lose her, but they chose to lose themselves. You know,
I thought it was beautiful, and their like relationship, like on screen, like I used to get really annoyed by it, but in this movie, I don't know, I just thought it was really beautiful. I also thought Hawkeye was pretty hot in this movie.
No Hulk hot this time.
Hulk hot? No, Hawkeye hot.
I like Hawkeye in these movies. I really like Jeremy Renner. I think
I liked him in this one for sure.
And I also like the idea that he's lost his family. And he doesn't like the fact that there are still terrible people that survive the snap, so he's just
it's still ridiculously good looking.
So yeah, the idea that he's just getting rid of all the bad people that he feels deserves to have been killed more than his family. That was, I mean, it's an overreaction, but it's a really good overreaction.
Oh yeah, because they have like that time period when they're in like Japan, right?
Yeah.
I remember it like at the start. I was like, "What the fuck is going on?" Did anyone else like lose their shit when like there was a second nebula?
I lost my shit, but not in a good way.
I was like, "Oh my god!" Yeah, I was meaning like not in like a, "Oh yeah, this is amazing." I just was like, "What?"
Yeah,
Like, how come she can exist as two? How come she can exist as two though? How come they can bring her back from her timeline into the current one, and yet everyone else stays in their own
Same way that Captain
timeline?
America can fight himself and then admire his own ass.
But like, couldn't they then though have just brought people from that timeline into the future timeline?
Well, that's possibly how they're going to get Gamora back.
And Black Widow? Or can they not? Because like legit, because of what's happened.
You'd be robbing another reality of a Black Widow. So that creates a problem.
It doesn't make any sense. I can't. It hurts my head, like legit trying to think about it, because I can't. I'm like forever chasing like, but if you do that, then that's going to happen.
Just think of every time they time travel as an alternate reality. It has no.
I can't though because it hurts my head.
Part of the spiel earlier in the film when they were discussing like what the rules of the time travel that they were using was going to be. Part of that, like, was establishing like that they weren't going to be doing anything to do with paradoxes at all. Like just to make like those past interactions with their other selves more straightforward.
Yeah, it's just the idea that it's an alternate reality, so anything goes. So they go and screw up someone else's universe for a bit and then come back. It's basically the Star Trek reboot rules of time travel. Although the discussion about all the time travel movies that they've seen was quite funny. All of these are wrong, and then Ant-Man's like, Die Hard. No, that's not time travel.
Yeah, it turns out Rhodey's a bit of a film buff.
It turns out, yeah. What else are you going to do when you're on deployment in some dusty country, I suppose? Or he's had 5 years to catch up on his films where nothing's been going on. They're not making any new movies because half of everybody's dead. So there's hardly any new films.
They're just slapping an Audi badge on the old ones.
I suppose we've got a number of questions on the time travel thing, actually. Kat, you had one that was pretty definitive, so it'd be good to cover that.
Well, I collected a couple of questions that were like about the paradoxes.
Yeah.
So one of them was the nebula one, which we've asked about already. Basically, like my issue with this whole time travel thing is that because it doesn't exist / isn't possible / science hasn't exactly found a way to like properly address like the paradox. Like it is a purely fictional thing, and of course, you can set up whatever rules you like. But this movie like doesn't even remotely try to address the issue of paradoxes. Banner gets one throwaway line of, "Oh yeah, don't worry about it," because basically, like, it's all locked in, right? Like, it's all going to happen anyway. So, like, you go back in time, you do the thing, and then that becomes the new reality. So, like, we're good. And, like, then that's it. So then by the end of the film, there's, like, I want to say, like, at least a dozen things that we've all mentioned through this conversation. There's, like, wait a minute, then what about this? But none of it matters, and none of it's addressed, and it's all like the new reality, right? So it's like it really frustrates me because this is a 3-hour-long film, and for some reason, like, none of these effects like remotely concern us during the narrative. It's all just kind of like, well, we're gonna leave you with all your questions, bye. And one of the key reasons that I'm disappointed with this film is that, like, if you're gonna do time travel, like, do it right. Like, address it. Make this be the thing. Not just like, I don't know, use the time travel as a device to bring in cameos of people and just kind of go, woohoo, yay, remember that guy? Yay, I love that guy. Just like, I don't know, a terrible use of time and time travel. That's my rant over.
I like the use of time travel. I quite like the idea that so you can't change anything, so that maintains your current timeline. That doesn't change. So you can go back and you can visit all these different time periods, and you don't have them impact each other because they're not the same timeline. That's fine. I quite like that. It just means that it means the characters don't have to be that careful. Which is nice, I suppose. And there is a bit of Back to the Future too about it. They're running about in the background of their own histories, which is quite funny. You get to see a bit of a different perspective on the aftermath of the Battle of New York. Actually, one of the questions from Mark is the trip to the back to the Battle of New York. Why was the Tesseract turned over to Thor to take back to Asgard, but not the scepter? Even though they didn't know it was a Mind Stone, it was still alien technology. Which actually. I kind of thought of that at the time. It was like, yeah, they seem to be pretty. Thor seems to be pretty okay, despite the fact that the whole thing in Age of Ultron was, I need the scepter back. Give me the scepter back. I'll have a party and stuff, but I'm taking the scepter back. So they just let it be handed over to Shield. Well, Shield, Hydra, at that point, which was a bit strange. Although, and it was good to see Alexander Pierce again. And a callback to the elevator scene and all that kind of stuff. That was nice stuff. Nice touch. It's funny that they picked Thor: The Dark World to go back to, considering that's one of the unpopular ones.
Yeah.
But even then, I liked Thor's scene with his mother, so that kind of justified that. I think that film could have contained a scene between Thor and his mother that would have been good. But we get it eventually, I suppose. So the time travel rules, I think for the most part, they stick to them. Although I'm not sure about the returning them to the original point in time, because surely you're just creating another reality where you return to whatever Infinity Stone you stole. Also, I'm wondering what would happen when Cap sees the Red Skull again. Hi, I'm here to give you back the soul. So wait a minute. You're that German crazy guy I was fighting like 70 years ago. Oh my god. How have you been?
It's been 70 years.
Yeah. You've just been up this mountain this whole time? Oh well, that's a short conversation. Here's your stone back. So yeah, there's almost an entire film of, well, I don't really want to see it, of Cap flying through different realities, returning stones to see what happens there. Just to see what the mechanics of that are. So, but I think up until that point it's really consistent with its rules, because it is, we go there, we steal this reality stone, then we come back. And then we have to take that stone back, because we just have to. For reasons. So I was fine with it, time travel wise. It was quite a fun collection of sequences for me.
How did everyone enjoy all the parent chat? Because I have to say, some of those moments were super beautiful.
Was in Tony talking to his dad?
Tony talking to his dad, Thor getting to see his mother, and she's all like, "I'm a witch, I can see these things." No, I thought some of it was super beautiful.
Yeah, I think that was part of why they decided to simplify the time travel rules of what they were doing, was so they didn't have to concern themselves with altering the future or creating paradoxes. Then that left them more space to have character moments instead of ones specifically relating to the consequences of time travel.
Yeah, and I did like Tony's chat with his dad. At that point, I knew he was going to die, because that's the kind of last thing he needs to resolve, is the issues he has with his dad, and he was able to do that through talking to him. I also thought it was quite funny that they had the John Slattery version of Howard Stark with James Darcy as Jarvis. It was a weird TV film merged there. Although the Russos did create the Agent Carter TV series, or they were involved in it anyway.
All right, I didn't realise that.
Yeah, I'm sure one of them directed a bunch of episodes. But that's the only TV cameo we got.
Which one?
James Darcy, Howard Stark's butler, the guy.
No, there's two at least. Sure.
Okay.
Go on.
Are they not both from Community?
Oh, from MCU.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry. I wasn't paying attention.
Carry on.
Yeah, I would have thought we'd got a Coulson cameo somewhere, considering how important he was to Phase 1, but never mind.
Mate, he's just appeared all digitized in Captain Marvel, so, like, not...
That's true, but still. The more Coulson, the better, as far as I'm concerned.
And it would have been nice to see the reaction, see the Avengers' reaction to him and being like, "Hang on, you're still alive."
Yeah. Oh well.
Not anymore.
It wasn't to be. So time travel. I think there's quite a few questions about how does Nebula kill herself? It's like it's because she's not killing herself. She's killing an alternate version of herself.
Is it suicide?
Well, it's not alternate though. Like it's the older version. So like if the older version is dead, how does the like more recent version?
How does she not die?
Yeah.
Well, it's like Back to the Future. They say it's not Back to the Future, so that doesn't happen because in Back to the Future
they're not from the same timeline anymore because it's been changed by them traveling through time. So.
It doesn't make any sense.
It doesn't make any sense.
You just have to accept it.
It's just like when Hulk finishes zapping Scott back and forward into the future, into his own future, and then they finally succeed at it, and he just exclaims, "Time travel!" And also Tony just invented it in an afternoon, and that's it.
That's what Tony Stark does. Just spends an afternoon working on time travel. Why not?
Yeah.
Why not? But yeah, no. I don't find the time travel confusing actually. Like, I don't know. The whenever a duplicate's created, that duplicate has nothing to do with the original. Because they're from
but
timelines.
how is that? But like, but that's the thing. Like, what? How is? Whatever. I don't even want to start trying to think about it because it's going to hurt.
I'll draw a chart for someone one day.
Can I just say, as an aside, because Natalie mentioned it, and I think that it's worth mentioning, I loved the Community cameos. I was really happy, like for Yvette Nicole Brown, and for Russo himself, and that whole thing of like and Ken Jeong, of course. Like it was just like it was really nice as a add on to like Abed's cameo, like from which was it? I think it was Winter Soldier.
Yeah, Winter Soldier.
Yeah.
One of the people sitting in the back door of the Shield facility.
Yeah.
The Russo cameo is the first openly gay character in the MCU.
I know, and it's I'm not gonna use bad language because I know you don't like cursing on this podcast, but it's insert bad language word here. I mean, for like 2 minutes, like after the film ended, I was like, yeah, so like he went on a date with a dude. That's kind of cool. And then I was like, wow, those are the breadcrumbs we get. I see. That's it.
Yeah, actually, and before I saw the film, when I was thinking about there being mention of like the first like openly gay character, I actually thought that was going to be Carol. But apparently not.
Right. Well, I mean, the argument could be made with that new haircut.
I was thinking that. Yeah, I get some seriously butch vibes from her.
Yep. Carol comes back with like the most lesbian haircut of all time, and it's like, well, if anybody had any doubts, let them be appeased right now.
I don't know.
That girl's gay.
Just, giving her a run for her money.
Yeah.
That was one of Dagmara's questions. Why does Captain Marvel have such a stupid haircut?
It's not stupid, honey. It's just gay.
I thought she looked cute. But also, I feel bad because the whole, it went past me, him being gay. And so I was like,
it's
what?
It's a blink and you'll miss it moment.
It really is, yeah. My friend...
I just was a bit like, I don't know. I feel like if that's what they were going to do. Well, I don't
Yeah,
know.
because it's breadcrumbs, because it's nothing really. You know, like, oh, like offhandedly mentioning that, like, oh yeah, the person I went on a date with is off the same sex. Wow, revolution. You know, like it's yeah, my friend who I went to see the film with, she didn't realize that that's what had happened, you know? Like, she was focused on, like, the emotions of what was happening in the scene and, like, the whole group therapy aspect of it. And she didn't really register that the guy said he'd been on a date with a dude. And it's like, well, I think that's what they were banking on, you know? Like, it all happens off camera. You don't see anything on screen. So, you know, it's like, oh, wow, openly gay. I mean, sure, I suppose. I guess.
Well, I suppose that the fact that it just came up naturally in conversation is in itself all right. You know, it's not...
Yeah,
about,
but it's just that it's breadcrumbs. Yeah. It's just that it's, you know, like it's all right. It's kind of cool. You know, for a couple of minutes after the film ended, I was like, oh, and we got a gay character.
It's
Not that he matters in any way, shape, or form.
In another 10 or 11 years, there'll be a big battle where at some point all the openly gay superheroes team up together.
Well,
at this point...
Well, if you watch Thor Ragnarok and then read an interview with like Kevin Feige, then you'll find out that Valkyrie is bisexual.
I mean, there are trace elements of that in the film, and there had been a scene where a woman comes out of Valkyrie's room, implying that they'd slept together, which was cut, which they did film, but then they cut it. And yeah, I mean, the whenever Valkyrie's like fighting Hela, and there's this blonde woman, and she's like dying, and Valkyrie like looks devastated.
Yeah.
It's, you know, it's, again, previously I think they'd shot some stuff that implied that that woman was like her lover, which didn't make it into the film. I obviously, you know, like as a queer person who like looks for those breadcrumbs, I was like, oop, I'm sensing a thing. You know, like you pick up on the things because like you're so thirsty for any sort of representation that you're like, wait, did she look at another woman? Could that be? But yeah, like it's baby steps, and I suppose it's better than nothing.
Yeah.
But it is
just looking at the scene. It could be our best friend.
Yeah, exactly. You know, like it's easily, and it's the same with Carol, you know, like on the one hand, like that relationship between her and Maria and Captain Marvel, I think to me, like reads incredibly gay. But at the same time, women are really close friends with each other like this, and you could, you know, just have a super close friendship and that not being gay. So like, yeah, like that's why it's just out there in the open. And that, you know, as a side note, because it's not a conversation for this podcast, but it kind of goes back through like kind of like queer / lesbian history of how like lesbianism was never like properly like outlawed, like even in the UK, where it was like against the law to be a homosexual man until like the 80s or something, and you could be prosecuted and thrown into jail. But like for lesbians, that was never the same, because there's always that idea of like, oh, they're just friends, oh, they're just roommates, oh, they just live together, you know. And it's not, it goes back like hundreds and hundreds of years. So like it's full circle, comes back into the MCU in the same exact way. But it's not a conversation for this podcast because like we could talk about that for ages. So yeah.
I feel like Marvel are really good at like just really portraying like really strong friendships though. Like
that's true.
I didn't get that from Captain Marvel, kind of like how I don't read Hawkeye and Black Widow's relationship as anything sexual. Mm-hmm. Like even if I wanted it to be. But like I don't, like I just think of them as being like just really close friends, and I just feel like yeah, and I just feel like they did that with like Captain Marvel and that girl. Forget her name. What's her name?
There's a lot of discussion on Steve and his boyfriends across his films. You know, Sam and Bucky.
But it's just because like they think they showcase like strong friendships and what like it doesn't have to be romantic. And I think that's one of the things I really appreciated about Hawkeye and Black Widow is that like most movies hint or have to have like some sort of relationship established between a boy and a girl, and it can't be anything like
Well, there's a lot to be
platonic.
said about not shoehorning in love stories to every single film.
Yeah.
Well, the thing is, though, is like they do that really well because, like, I can't think of anything else at the top like at this moment. But there's definitely like other movies where they have to hint back at anything between like those opposite sex, and it's like kind of nice that they don't do that.
Well, if you look at like Cap and Black Widow, for example, like Winter Soldier, their interaction is very much about them becoming friends.
Mm-hmm.
You know, they're just kind of two people that know each other up until that point, but they actually become friends in that film. And you have the bit where they have to kiss each other because they have to hide from people that are chasing them, and you know everybody has fun with that. But broadly speaking, it's about them becoming friends, and then their friendship it carries through right up until Endgame. So you know, there's never a romantic component to it. And I mean, I'm always the first to be like, why is there a pointless love story in this film? And most superhero films have them, certainly up until a certain point, and it's just tiresome because most of the time it's just in there and it doesn't need to be.
Yeah, I think they think that that's what an audience wants, and it's like actually I think Marvel are in this space where they can.
Yeah, you need to have your hero, stuff. You need to have your love interest, you need to have the villain. You don't always need all of those components. In a love story, if it makes sense, I think the Cap and Peggy love story is retroactively more interesting than it actually is in his first film. Because of the, separated by decades thing. But in the actual film itself, it's a pretty pedestrian love story. It's just kind of had extra weight added to it over the years. And I suppose the Tony and Pepper love story, is... I guess that's quite a mature relationship, so to speak. It works because, it's always kind of there, but they never hugely focus on it. I don't know. How did we get onto this?
Life, Craig.
Life, just life.
Finds a way.
That's what I
Nice.
Life finds a way, yeah.
Yeah. I feel like we've not discussed the movie, but also it's like time.
I mean, time to discuss it or time to...
Time to wrap things. I don't know, we've probably got like 100 more questions.
There's definite themes among the questions. We haven't really talked about Cap's ending, so we do have a question about Cap's ending.
Aw, mate.
The simple question from Vicky is, how do you feel about Cap hanging over the shield to Falcon? I really like that. I think it's what happens in the comics, but that's not automatically...
Doing the what? I didn't hear that part, sorry.
Cap handing over the shield to Falcon.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, it makes sense. I like the conversation they had about it, where he's like, well, I'm not ready to be Captain America, but I'll give it a go. And he's like, yep, that's why it's you. And it was a great moment. I'm not sure why Bucky didn't pop over for a chat, though. That was weird. It's like,
yeah.
Oh, there he is. Sam, you talk to him. I don't want to talk to him.
Mm-hmm.
I read a really interesting article about like white saviors in movies. Like when it comes to like black characters in films, and how a lot of storylines feel like white heroes are like written in to be a voice box or someone to like authenticate a story. And after I read that article, it made me think about that scene where I was like, why, like, I don't know, and maybe I shouldn't have been reading about it like that, but it just felt like those two things had coincided, and I just was thinking about how it's like Captain America being like, okay, I'm now bestowing this upon you, like I'm now giving this, it just made me think of that article. So then I couldn't really read it as not this engineered decision to try and appear to be like a particular way.
That's one way to think about it, but what I liked about it was how he hands him the shield and asks him how it feels. Sam says, like, it belongs to someone else. And then Cap says, it doesn't. And that's like, even though he doesn't feel like he's ready, or it doesn't feel like this is his to take on, he's being told that he is ready and that he is worthy. Almost, this is his moment of being able to wield Mjolnir.
It'd almost be worse if Sam had been like, "Yep, I can do this," because it's that would be kind of arrogant presumption on his part, wouldn't it? It would just be, you think you're this kind of paragon of virtue that I'm known as. This is weird. I'm not saying like Cap sees himself that way, but people do definitely see him that way. So I don't. Yeah, I think that Sam accepting it with humility was the right call, because he has to grow into that role.
Yeah, and he definitely. I mean, even in just sort of a small character moment, he definitely really portrays the weight of responsibility, but also the honor, I think, of being handed the shield.
Yeah, well, and the reason that I quite like the moment I agree with the other thoughts that everyone else has had, but it also acknowledges like the idea of Captain America, like of like being rather than being a person, like it's like an ideal. It's like a mantle that somebody wears who portrays something for people to aspire towards. And the fact that Sam says that he doesn't feel ready for it is pretty much like the whole idea of it. Because the idea of Captain America is something that people try to be rather than they ever actually attain or believe that they ever could.
Because if you think about it, Steve didn't see himself that way in the beginning. He saw himself as just some guy that wanted to help out with the war effort. He wanted to do his part, so to speak. But people attach this kind of weight to him because, well, he becomes this historical figure that's kind of celebrated throughout history, and then he comes back and he represents certain things, and he generally has himself pointed in the right direction. He doesn't make always the best decisions, like lying to Tony about who killed his dad, for example. But he does what he can, and I think Sam. Well, you don't know much about his morality, to be honest, but I think he would have. He certainly learned from the best. I don't know.
I like it. I like that it's him and not Bucky. I don't know that MCU Bucky would make a remotely good Captain America. So I'm glad it's Sam, because Sam is the good candidate here. I didn't like the scene, and it was awfully contrived, and in a way, like, kind of ignored the relationship both between Sam and Steve, but also Bucky and Steve, which we kind of touched on a little bit. Like it's just kind of like, well, like, here you go, and also, do you want to tell me about this thing? No, I won't. Like, all right, you guys were friends, like, you were fugitives together, but instead, it just like I don't know, it feels impersonal. It feels kind of void of character somehow. It's just kind of like, well, like, here's the baton, good luck, all right, thank you. And I suppose we'll have. I'm happy that we get Sam Cap America movies now, probably. I'm excited about that because he's cool and I like him. But yeah, the scene was terrible and I hated it. The end. I feel like there's a pattern here. Like, yeah, all of you are like excited and like, oh, I love this. Yeah, like, it was really sweet. And I'm like, no, it was garbage.
Here's why it sucked. And why you're all wrong.
Yeah, it's not that you're wrong, but like I don't know. I've only seen it the once. I've only seen the midnight screening, so I haven't gone back. So I don't know if watching it a second time will soften my reaction somewhat. But the longer I've had to like think about it, the more like my opinions have kind of cemented into this. Like, well, from I'm not sure I like this to yeah, no, I definitely don't like this. So, yeah, and that's not necessarily a great thing, I have to say. I really wanted to like this movie and everything about it, but here we are.
The only issue I really have with that scene is, so Cap would have to return to his own reality somehow. So,
yeah.
How did he get from the glass floor that we're standing on.
How does he
The bench
stay
with
there?
Nobody noticing.
Oh, my bigger issue here is that we're expected to believe that Steve Rogers, who cannot watch a butterfly go by or two kids fighting without stepping in, so he's gone back in time to the 40s, married Peggy, and then was a secret husband, and did not go outside, and did not get involved in life and
Nazis.
try to stop wars. He didn't go to Vietnam. I'm sorry, but you expect me to believe that Steve Rogers would sit idly by and not be Captain America? I'm sorry, but no.
What if he was the cause of those wars?
Hmm?
He could have been the cause of Vietnam.
That would be very interesting.
Maybe this is why he won't talk
Unlikely.
about it, because he's actually a up.
Mm.
He got to have love, but that was it.
That would be very interesting, but I don't know that there's any implication in the film that happened. But it would be interesting.
I was kind of okay with it because I think Steve had gotten to the point where he was like, right, I'm out of the fight now. That's it. I've had enough. I'm going to have something of my own. And then what he does is he goes back to the 40s, lives his happy ever after with Peggy, which is great. It's a perfect ending for him. But he can do that knowing that history will tick along as long as he doesn't interfere with it in a way that's fine. He knows how it turns out. So he knows that at some point he'll be thawed out and everything will play out the way it does. Or it'll get to the point where Peggy goes senile and dies. That'll be a bit rough on him, but... other than that...
This is the bit that confused me, though, because, I didn't get how he stayed and lived, a full life. What does he do when he comes back when she's dead?
Maybe, yeah.
Is that why he's oh, okay, I can go back now? Because what if he died first and he never goes back?
Well, that's always a risk. I guess he wasn't caring about the risk.
I don't know. I thought it was nice that he goes back and he gets to, have that timeline with her. But I'm would it not have made sense to just uproot them both and have them both living in the future? Because that would have been cute. Imagine them being young and in the 21st century, and then it could have been California Man all over again.
But also, what about Peggy? What about Peggy creating S.H.I.E.L.D.? Because, if she gets Steve, would she create S.H.I.E.L.D.?
Yeah,
for the same reasons? Because, she created S.H.I.E.L.D. because he wasn't there anymore. So, I don't know that we would still get that same timeline.
Well, does he not? Would he not encourage it? Would he not tell her, oh, this is what you're going to do? Oh, maybe, wait a minute. Maybe she only ever created it because he went back in time to tell her to create it.
Yeah,
that's not consistent with the rules.
Is this what time future travel we've got? Is that how it happens?
I was going to say, I don't think that she created S.H.I.E.L.D. purely because Steve wasn't there. I think it was also partly so that she would be remembered as something other than just Captain America's girlfriend.
But was she even going out with him before he disappeared?
Well, sort of.
Kind of.
Yeah. That's when I was talking about how the love story is more interesting after the film that it's actually featured in. Because the actual film doesn't spend that much time on it and doesn't do much with it. It depends when he decides to rejoin the timeline, I suppose. If he goes when she's already director of S.H.I.E.L.D., then it's already created and he doesn't have to worry about the reasons behind it.
I just was so confused as to how he was able to come back as an old man. I have to be honest, by that time, because I, again, only saw it at the midnight showing, when it gets this point of the story, I was why is this not over yet? Why do we have to... And then they linger on, the gold ring on his finger. It's I saw it the first time. You don't have to, do a slow motion sequence with it again. I got what you're implying.
Yeah.
But, I can see that, but I don't know. I'm confused. I don't know how the time travel works. And it's just kind of, bumming me out if I think about it.
I've figured out a sort of easy-ish way to explain it. So you've seen the Star Trek reboot, right?
No. heard it's really good.
We did a
I've heard it's
podcast
really...
on it. It was our first.
The reboot? What TV show?
No,
the TV show?
No, the film with Chris Pine.
I saw.
And
Oh, the one with my favourite.
Carl Urban.
Yeah.
Yeah, that one.
I missed
the one with Carl Urban.
Yeah.
Okay, right.
Sorry, I was thinking you meant like the TV show, and I was like, I don't have time for that right now. Sorry.
The explanation I was going for was in that film,
Yes.
the old version of Spock, played by Leonard Nimoy, travels back in time.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so when he arrives in that present day, or when in the film's present day, he is there, as is another version of himself who's way younger. Spock continues to live in that timeline, but it doesn't affect his old one.
I can't think of any what.
We're definitely in the Endgame.
Yeah.
But don't they say,
I mean,
like,
speaking of, this is dragging.
It is, and I feel like we've not even discussed, like, the movie.
Oh, wait, time stone. And we're back at the beginning.
Here was me thinking that was the perfectly easily understandable explanation, but there it goes.
Message me it. Let me think about it.
Draw a diagram.
In words. I can't think about it when you tell me.
There will be lines, and then intersecting lines.
Wait, do it. Please do it. I look forward to that.
Yeah, so Cap's ending, it's divisive, at least on this podcast. I loved it. I thought it was perfect for him. I couldn't see any other way of him ending other than continuing on being the leader of the Avengers, which, well, is a bit difficult because Chris Evans doesn't want to do these films anymore.
I thought he was going to die.
That's also what
I thought he was going to die. I thought both him and Iron Man and, like, together.
Oh, that would have been beautiful.
Sure, but no, I meant like in the battle. I meant, like die in a spectacular way. You know, the way that Iron Man did. Perhaps with Iron Man, like together. Like it would take two people to do this. Like I don't know. I thought it was going to be like, yeah.
One provides the thumb, the other provides the middle finger.
If you'd asked me in the first 5 minutes who was going to die, I would have said Iron Man, only because I thought he was going to die at the very start of the movie. I thought they were going to. I thought they were going to just kill him really plainly, because that could happen. But yeah, well, he does not die.
No, he doesn't.
I feel like I have to say this in every podcast. I'm all about Tiny Tim. Someone please say it. Go say it.
No.
Say it, please.
No.
Okay. Well, I wait. I was saying in my head. I lost track of what I was saying.
Yeah, I actually thought Cap would die in the battle as well. I actually thought that was it when when he was knocked on his ass and then he got up and he fastened the shield or what was left of it and was facing down Thanos' entire army on his own. I thought that was it. I actually thought that was going to be it.
Well, you're wrong.
Well, obviously. But I thought that was it.
You think?
Oh wait, I wasn't paying attention at all.
Also, who gives a shit if he gives his shield away? He doesn't need it anymore if he's got Mjolnir. So,
But he put that back as well.
Why? He earned it. He works hard for his money.
He earned everything.
Because
he earns everything.
That reality Thor needs his Mjolnir.
Meow meow. Yeah. You earn everything.
So what about Thor? Thor, as we've never seen him before, as Angus said.
I read another article about this. Just keep reading articles. Somebody was saying that they were really, really, really upset that fat shaming had made its way into the latest Marvel movie. And I have to be honest, I really disagreed with it because I don't think they're fat shaming at all.
I think it was big guys can do Thor too. It's inspirational.
Yeah. But also, I don't know, I think it's showing you that he has given up and he has, well, I say that, he looks like he's kind of happy, but obviously he's got some PTSD that he's not dealing with. But he's just kind of like taken a step back and gone, actually, I don't need to be at the forefront of everything. I can be, that guy that just hides out in my house with my pals and plays computer games.
It's good to know that even gods can have bad half decades too.
Yeah.
It was, yeah. It seems to be the Asgardian PTSD coping mechanism is drinking a lot, because that's what Valkyrie did.
Yeah. I just think it's just his way of becoming human, like, of having, these bad habits, like unhealthy coping mechanisms. He's dealing with a lot of loss, and this article was just talking about how he was like the butt of everyone's jokes, but I didn't really see him like that. What did you guys think?
He kind of usually is the butt of everyone's jokes, whether he's ripped or as he was in Endgame, though. Like, people are always laughing at Thor. Or maybe that's just me that's always laughing at Thor.
Probably. We've all had the conversation multiple times of how Thor's my favorite, yes? So they hurt my feelings in a very deep way. I hated that. First of all, the whole idea of like, oh, he's fat, so that's a joke. Oh, wow, he let himself go. And like, it's funny for like 3 minutes, but then you let it go on for like 3 hours. And that's, it stops being funny really quickly for me. And it just bothered me. It bothered me a lot because I thought that it was out of character for him. This entire, like, subplot I felt was completely out of character for Thor. It was a very Thor Ragnarok like take on his personality, which, yes, like it worked within the context of that film, but then you extrapolate it and you just make it humor, and you lose sense of like the fact that this guy's like a god, like losing everything, would take it out of you for sure. But just like, I don't know, becoming a gamer bro, like I don't know. I hated it. I hated it so much. And because they started the movie that way, I was like, oh, great. That's great. This film.
I did think that he was gonna I did think that by the end of the movie, he was gonna have regained his composure somewhat. But it doesn't happen,
Same, yeah, but they didn't do it. Mm-mm.
But maybe it's because
on task for the final battle, and he got armored up, and he looked a bit like Odin when he got his armor on using the lightning.
His beard.
Oh yeah, his pleated beard was pretty cute. That was adorable.
And I think, as you say, Natalie, humanising him a bit. I mean, the fact that he's he's like, I don't want to be king. I never wanted to be king. It's not for me. And then he just goes, you know what, I'm going to hang around with the Guardians of the Galaxy. Whether they want me on board or not, I'm just going to hang around and I'm going to bicker with Chris Pratt, which, if that is the next film, that's going to get tedious. That will get tedious. Because it was starting to get tedious. And I was like, watching those two, battling for supremacy for 2 hours. Don't sign me up for 2 hours.
I didn't mind it because I thought if this is the only scene where this is what happened, enjoyed it as a little throwback and a little bit of tension between them. But yeah, I don't really want to see them continue doing that. But it was fine for that movie.
Yeah, I don't want to see more of it. I was happy with the little snippet we got. I don't want any more of it. If Chris Hemsworth wants to do more films and then shows up in the next Guardians film and hangs around with those guys, then could be alright. Who knows? I think it's more likely that one of the first lines in that film will be, we dropped Thor off on Name of Planet, and then he did stuff. That's probably what they're going to say. Andrew, what did you make of Thor?
I like the idea of what he had become as an extension of where they left him at the end of Infinity War. Well, just because I think it seems implying that he felt personally responsible for Thanos' victory because he, more than anybody, had the opportunity to actually kill him. And because of that, he left that feeling like a failure, and so decided to treat himself like one, which seemed to me was why he ended up the way they did, because he's just given up. He just felt there wasn't any point making any effort in anything before. Yeah, and I think that part of his journey for the film was realizing like that they actually still does have purpose, and he still can be some use. It just has to actually believe that himself. And just jumping forward a bit. One moment I particularly liked was just like during the final battle and getting to see him dual wielding Stormbreaker and Mjolnir, which was just epic. Like the pure practical fantasy aesthetic of it all.
Yeah, that was awesome. And I think the moment that he kills Thanos at the start, like just by lopping his head off, and just how empty he clearly feels after doing that, because it's no victory at all, because they can't win. There's no success there. All they've done is kill someone who's actually no longer a threat to them. So, yeah, I think it works. I mean, it is played for laughs for the most part. I think Thor largely is, especially these days. But yeah, I was all good with it. I enjoyed what they did with him. It was a very well kept secret. Let's put it that way. No one had any idea that was coming. On to Thanos. I think we'll finish off on Thanos, which seems right. I thought in this film he's very much a kind of an MCU villain in the sense that he's not like, he doesn't have a lot to do in this film as such, but I think you fall back on what was established from him in the previous film, so I think it works as a kind of combined piece. And he was certainly threatening enough. All the little bits where he just figures everything out was pretty cool. It kind of shows how smart he is, so it seemed like they leaned into his intelligence more than his power in this film, which I quite like.
Seemed like smaller, like.
He looked smaller.
I don't know. Just like, because you're just like, what's the big deal? Thanos.
What I want to know is, where did he get that T-shirt from at the beginning? Was he wearing that under his armour the whole time? Or did he make that T-shirt? Thanos in a T-shirt, that was something I thought I would never see.
And you did ask this right after we'd seen it as well.
Yeah.
Where did he
think
get
about this for a while.
And just like cooking, sprinkling some salt, like, just Thanos things.
Like Salt Bay.
Yeah.
He bought the farm.
Somebody makes that.
Farm.
I don't mind where Thanos, like the beginning of like, him like sort of knowing that was inevitably gonna be the end, etc. And how that ends and stuff, like for him and his character arc, that was fine. What bothered me though was past Thanos coming back and like having, like, this guy doesn't even know who these people are. And so the final battle is just kind of like, it's cool, it's super cool, and it's really impressive visually, and you get to see everybody come together and Avengers assemble and all of that, and that was like a fantastic moment. But this guy like has no idea who these people are and why like this matters.
Well,
and so like it just,
because he was told about them at
vaguely
the events of Avengers.
Oh yeah, sure, but like vaguely, like it's vague, like he doesn't have an emotional connection to any of this. Like, sure, like but the thing is that like being told something and experiencing something is not the same thing, which is something I've said before in this same podcast. And ultimately, like, a lot of the problems with this movie come from that. There's like a whole lot of telling and not enough showing, not enough experiencing something directly. I didn't like that past Thanos came back. I suppose we needed some sort of conflict, otherwise this whole thing would have just been solved with time travel super easily, and that would have been the movie, and it would have been 60 minutes long, and then that would have been it. But it just, like, I don't know. It just like bringing back like the past version of someone who like doesn't know who you are and hasn't met you, hasn't fought you before, all of those things. It's just kind of like, okay, it's kind of like the same thing with like Loki escaping with the Tesseract. This is like the Loki who hasn't had the character development. So the next time we see him, if we see this version of Loki, he is not the guy who like finally learned to accept himself and the fact that his brother has accepted him. He doesn't know any of that. He's still the guy who like causes mischief because he feels like an outcast. So it's like, it's that same thing. Like Thanos had character development by having obtained the stones and having had to like give up Gamora and all these things. And so like the guy who comes at the end to like kill the Avengers, like he's just like evil, villainous, like nonsensical Thanos who like we haven't seen like his emotions, like he hasn't
like
experienced
resetting
them.
a level. It's like it's like resetting a level, like on a game or something. Like where you end up back. You end up back, and you're like, oh god, I know exactly how this is going to play out. But we have to go back because this is our last save point. I don't know. It's just about like meh.
Exactly that. Yeah.
I mean, I still enjoyed it though. Like, I have to be fair.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, I had fun watching it, but it's just like the more I think about it, the more I'm like,
Yeah, just don't think about it. Just don't think about it. Just take it. Just do what I do. Just try and take it for like its face value and be like, all right, that's what it's offered. That's what it's given, and because like I said, I can't think about it because then you're like, well, it's all just rad. But then everything's mental. Everything's made up and everything's rad and everything's crazy and it's all super contrived and it's like, taken how many years to get here, but it just has to be like, I don't know. Yeah. Maybe when I see it again, I'm gonna be like, what the fuck? But like right now, I'm like, yeah, it was good, but I'm trying not to think about too much of it because then I'll just,
Well, it's kind of hoping if they answer how Thanos knew who Tony Stark was specifically, because that was a big thing in Infinity War. It doesn't really get answered, but and I had to think twice when he was like Avengers and he knew who they were, and I was like, how does he know? And then it was like, oh yeah, the post-credit scene, Avengers is where he gets.
But he's got like the stones, right? Like so he knows what everything is.
He doesn't. Not this Thanos. This is the Thanos who didn't get the stones. He doesn't know. Like he doesn't know anything. You guys.
You don't know how much of Nebula's memory he's watched. Maybe he's seen everything.
Like, so he doesn't. Wait a minute, I can't remember. So he gets to the. Oh yeah, because he gets back to this future timeline. That's the alternate whatever, and he's like, "This is how I can get all the stones." That's right? And then obviously he doesn't. But
yeah, it's weird.
It was handy that they managed to see all Nebula's memories. They kind of melded past and future Nebula together to be able to.
It was interesting.
Play it all back.
I found it really frustrating because, like, you do kind of warm to who Nebula is, and then she's like, "Here again."
Well, it wasn't her fault. She didn't know it was going to happen.
Well, I don't know. It is interesting how they play that whole like wanting to please, like the father figure. Like it's interesting to see that. I don't know.
Yeah. Andrew, what do you think of Thanos in this film?
Well, it was a little disappointing, like what he became when the past version of him was brought back, like to become the villain again. Because his motivation in Infinity War, the reasoning for his whole plan was incredibly short-sighted, and I genuinely don't believe it would have actually worked at all in the long run. But you could understand why I was thinking that. Whereas Thanos simply ended up being another of the generic MCU villains who are all just like I will destroy you all because reasons. Just purely because that was what the plot needed to drive it, and he even said so right before the final battle, like that he's going to enjoy destroying the Earth because these people have inconvenienced him for all of 10 minutes, and it didn't quite seem to tally like with the other interpretation of him, like who was very calm and measured in every decision that he made.
Yes, I see what you mean there, and I do think that he's just a kind of standard Marvel villain in this film. But I was able to attach everything that I knew about him based on the previous film, and I think I enjoyed what he did in this film as well. I just, there's no denying how much of a threat he was. He was able to face down pretty much every single one of the Avengers one way or another, with or without stones. I do think it's a bit weird that after all the Infinity Gauntlet stuff, it's a specially made piece of kit that can hold the stones, but one of Stark's iron gloves can just hold them, no problem. That was a bit.
Because he's a genius. He's a mad genius.
Yeah, but he's not a dwarf with access to the heart of a dying star.
Yeah. Well, maybe that heart of a dying star is actually our.
Maybe.
In another timeline.
Yeah. Yeah, Thanos was good. It was good to see Josh Brolin one more time in that role, I suppose. Out of the 3 or 4 times he's played it across however many years. Yeah. I think we should wrap up there, lest we.
Yes.
Yeah. Lest we go on all night. So, Andrew, what are your final thoughts on Endgame, MCU, everything?
Okay, well, my final thoughts on that are one of the niggling points that I talked about for the podcast. I still really enjoyed the film, and I felt like it was a good combination of everything. And yeah, and I'll probably go to see it again, like before it's out the cinemas.
Sometime within the next year, then.
Exactly, yes. Because if nothing else, I'll be interested to see how everything holds up with prior knowledge of what's going to happen when you know how it all plays out, and then see if it actually does hold together.
Yeah. Angus,
I still think it's pretty incredible cinematic achievement. I don't think there's been any other franchises like this that have done as much, covered as much, and spanned as many movies and years as this. And I think we've come a long way, all of us, probably, in the time since Iron Man came out. And it's been strange to look back at it and think of all that time that's gone by and all the films that this had to kind of sum up and finish off. I do think that there's a lot you can kind of pick apart and nitpick and scrutinize, and I think that I felt that way. I mean, the first time that I saw it, I just really enjoyed it for a kind of overall experience. The second time I saw it, I did begin to come up with a few more questions about how some of this works, or, does it all hang together? Is it as satisfying? But I still think it's a really good finale to this whole saga. I think about the next phase that I don't know if I'm emotionally ready to dive straight back into another sort of 22 film long saga, and I kind of likened it to finishing a massive RPG game like Fallout 3 and then just getting straight stuck into New Vegas. I just don't know if I'm ready for that right now, but I think that is probably what's going to happen, and I think that even from the very next set of films, they'll already be building towards something else, because I think that they've seen how well it's worked here, and I can't imagine that they're not going to follow a similar formula by sowing some seeds for the next 10 or 11 years.
So you're looking for a bit of a palate cleanser.
Yeah.
Natalie, what do you think?
Well, okay, I can talk about, I guess, the movie. So, yeah, I've only seen it once. I do want to see it again, though. I enjoyed it. I did enjoy it, and it is this combination of all of these different things that I guess we've kind of grown up having watched and our time in as a viewer. But yeah, I can't think about too many of some of the specifics too much, because it'll hurt my head. And if things start not matching up, I'm going to be, I don't know, it's just a little bit frustrating. So I just need to think about it, on the surface. I enjoyed it. enjoyed it a lot. Some really epic fight scenes. Like we've said in the past, some of them can be really long, like too long. But this one had some really fantastic battle scenes. As for like the next phase, I hadn't really thought about it at all. Like, I haven't given it any thought. I've just kind of been thinking of this as like the end. And that's why I was kind of taken aback when I saw like a Spider-Man trailer, because I was like, spoiler alert. Like, before the start of this one, I was like, all right. Probably I'll watch some of them, but I don't know how it's gonna. I don't know what it's gonna look like. I don't know what it's gonna involve. I feel like, not that I'm done, but like that they could easily just end it there. But I know they're not. Yeah. But I'm gonna go see it again, that's for sure. So, and I'm hoping that I enjoy it. Maybe even more than the first season.
Oh, well, we'll see how that goes. Kat, what are your final thoughts?
It's sad that this was it. Ultimately, I find it a very disappointing, lackluster ending, not in terms of visuals, not in terms of, the scope of it, but in terms of story. And that's always what I focus on because I'm a writer, and that's always like my primary thing that I think of when I watch films. And it was not a satisfactory way to end things. A lot of things were left loose. A lot of characters were not given the respect that they should have been. And I don't mean necessarily in terms of screen time, although that too. But just, like respecting their story and their place within the MCU. And while, Natalie does have a point about, don't think about it too much, the thing is that I've been thinking really deeply about the MCU for the last 10 years or so. And the fact that now the only way to enjoy this movie is to not think about it too much is really depressing.
That is depressing.
So it's fine, and I will watch it again, and maybe I'll appreciate some of it more upon a second watch. But ultimately, I feel like the things that I really appreciated about the MCU were kind of lost in this one, and it makes me really sad. But I suppose, we don't have to like all movies. And while, I really didn't like this one, I really loved Infinity War. And so for me, I'm happy kind of leaving it there narratively, to be honest. More so than giving us this, weird epilogue. Yeah, I don't know. Question mark. The end.
Cool. For my kind of final thoughts, I mean, I've seen it 3 times, and I'm still, usually in a third viewing, I'm sitting there picking it apart, and maybe I don't quite enjoy it as much as I did the first time. But on that third viewing, I was still right there like I was the first time, and that's not like me at all. Usually, I'm the king of diminishing returns. Like, the more I look at something, the less I like it. It's just, I remember loving The Dark Knight when I first saw it, and now I can almost not stand watching it. It's just diminished returns. I've just seen it that many times. But with this, I feel like I could watch it more and more and more. And, that there are nitpicks, obviously, some of which I've had a lot of fun talking about this evening. I think it's just, it can be fun. It can be part of the experience. Just be like, hang on, that doesn't work. What about this part and what about that part? But, as a culmination of everything I've been watching for the past 10 years, as well as everything I've been reading since I learned to read, the kind of the callbacks to all of that they've done, not just in this film but in other films, have been great. I mean, seeing pretty much everybody that they've established come out of portals towards the end of the film to, face down one major threat, the Avengers in their entirety. Even though there's probably these poor Wakandans sitting up the back thinking, are we Avengers? It's like, no, it's just those guys at the front. We're just here to help. And then you've got a bit of an Avengers relay race of them, flying around with the Infinity Gauntlet, trying to get it to a van. Which is kind of, you know, it's that kind of, yeah, it's the kind of celebration of the interconnectivity. You know, you've got all these films, they've built them to such a way that everybody can play together and it doesn't feel weird. I mean, can you imagine straight after watching the first Iron Man film, thinking about him fighting a giant purple titan? You know, it's unthinkable at that point, but they've brought us to that point in such a way that it doesn't feel weird, it just feels completely natural. And you've got, you know, Ant-Man cutting about, quipping in the same film that you've got these kind of end-of-the-world stakes. It's just crazy. I mean, it's crazy that they've managed to pull this off. You know, there's a lot of the things they say that you can't adapt into live action because it's impossible, and they've said that about Lord of the Rings, they've said that about the other things, the Dark Tower. Turns out they're still right. But, you know, something on the scope of the MCU would have been unthinkable 10 years ago, even when they were thinking about doing it. So it's amazing that they've done it, and I think this film is a worthy conclusion, I guess is what I'm trying to say, at least to me. So for Phase 4 and beyond, I'd quite like to see some more standalone-y stuff. You know, Spider-Man Far From Home should kind of stand on its own a bit. I feel like they can maybe set up little things. More subdued team-ups would be nice. Little smaller team-ups of different people. That would be cool. Yeah, I'm quite happy with what they're doing, and I'll continue to watch it. I guess that's what I've got to say. There we go. So, on that note, we should all return to our respective timelines, even though Natalie doesn't understand what that means.
I don't know what that means.
And get on with our lives. So, Andrew, Andrew, thank you for appearing and discussing this film.
Yes, well, I am now saluting and falling backwards into an orange spark circular portal.
That's good. Angus, thank you.
Thank you. I am inevitable.
Natalie, thank you.
The end.
And Kat, thank you.
Thank you for Asgard.
And I'm off to retrieve that bench from the bottom of the lake. So that was our discussion on Avengers Endgame. Thanks to YouTuber Neil Stenson for his excellent cover of Portals from the Avengers Endgame soundtrack, and to YouTuber Dagma for his excellent interpretation of the Avengers music. If you like what you heard, then snap that subscribe button on iTunes, YouTube, Spotify, or any major podcasting app. iTunes users, please do take the time to leave us a star rating and comment. If you want to talk to us about Avengers Endgame, any other film in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, or anything else, then hit us up on Facebook or Twitter under Neil Before Blog, or leave us a comment on neilbeforeblog.co.uk. As always, we can be found fully restored on the next Neil Before Pod.